Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Is he late?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
From the ethereal realm of devotion to the practicality of daily spiritual practice, across the vast landscape of Vedic wisdom and teachings, this is Vaishnava Voices. Hosted by the dynamic husband and wife duo, Sitapati Das and Dana Devi, they bring to you an intimate exploration of the vibrant world of Vaishnavism. Interweaving ancient scriptures with modern contexts, personal stories with universal lessons, they illuminate the path of love, devotion, and conscious living.
Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to another episode of Vaishnava Voices. I'm your co-host, Sitapati Das, and beside me, as always, is the wonderful Dana Devi. Today, as with every episode, we're diving deep into the heart of Vaishnava teachings, exploring the wisdom, culture, and practices that guide us towards a life filled with devotion and service.
That's right, Sitapati. We are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Whether you are a seasoned devotee, a spiritual seeker, or simply curious about Vaishnavism, here in Vaishnava Voices, we are all about fostering connection, understanding, and growth. And remember, we are not just exploring, we are also experiencing. So let's begin.
So sit back, prepare your hearts and minds, and tune into the sounds of the soul on Vaishnava Voices.
Welcome to this week's edition of Vaishnava Voices. My name is Sitapati Das.
My name is Dana Devi.
And we need to re-record that intro because I don't have any hair since we did that one. This week, we're going to be reviewing the Tucker Carlson, Bryan Johnson interview that recently happened, talking about the existence of God, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. And we are joined by a very special guest this week to do a kind of a reaction video to it. It is the author, producer of a recent transhumanism video, very famous inside ISKCON. It is none other than Chandrasekhara Acharya Das. Welcome, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for having me. The word Acharya, by the way, is part of the name of Lord Chaitanya's uncle. His name was Chandrasekhara Acharya. So I was named after Chandrasekhara Acharya. Not that I've come up with the word Acharya, because I realize now after so many years of initiation that some people get irked. I even was told once, how dare you, you're so arrogant to me, and how dare you put the word Acharya in your name? And so Acharya is part of the name of the eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna.
There you
Okay. Yeah, and then you can add it as a title, Chandrasekhara Acharya Das, Acharya. Or at the beginning, Acharya Chandrasekhara Acharya Das, Acharya. Looks like it's a great day there. You're in New Govardhan in Australia?
New Govardhan down.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Yeah, we got like constant rain coming down here. It's like the Govardhan Leela happening here in Taranaki in New Zealand. I loved seeing your transhumanism video that you did the other day. Before we jump into reacting to Tucker Carlson's, can you just give us a bit of an idea about why you did that and why you chose that particular topic?
As a tiny YouTuber who's trying to introduce Krishna consciousness to people who may not know about Krishna, who are on a spiritual search, or I try to come up with topics that are relevant and that are somewhat entertaining at the same time. And as you, I'm of the belief that physicalism, or the idea that life comes from matter, right, as opposed to Prabhupada, who claimed so brilliantly, I think, life comes from life. I think that ideology is really detrimental to mankind. And since I like watching movies, and I've watched a whole bunch, and well, yeah, I've watched movies like everybody, I guess, unless you're, I don't know, pure devotee sannyasi, and even then, I guess you can. But the point is, each time a movie on the issue of consciousness, or a movie that has the theme of consciousness came up, such as Terminator, RoboCop, Frankenstein, Poor Things, etc., 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 Avatar 2, the theme of what is the self, came up, and it's always the same story, right? You're just matter, you're no different from machines. And so I thought, hey, why not make a video where there's some snippets of these famous movies to, in my tiny way, try to raise awareness of how we're being influenced and cheated into believing that life comes from matter.
It's a hot topic, yeah. And as you say, it seems to be like something if you were to take a Jungian kind of perspective in the kind of psyche in the universe. If you look at Srila Prabhupada, it's like, as you say, life comes from life versus the life comes from matter dichotomy. It's an eternal battle. I mean, let's get straight into the problematic framing of the devotees versus the demons, which you can't avoid if you read Srila Prabhupada, at any length. It's the battle between the materialists, aka the atheists, aka the asuras, and the devotees, aka the devas, the demigods. I think this might be the first time. Let me introduce my wife. This is Dana Devi. I don't know if you guys have actually met.
No, we haven't. Nice to meet you.
I don't think we've actually met in person. We've never been in the same place on this planet in this lifetime.
I also think so.
I think I said hello in Brindavan in 2019.
Es mucho gusto de vuelta.
Okay, so you guys have been in the same physical location in this Leela.
Yeah.
Hey, before we jump in, actually, I'd like to read this to you and get your thoughts on this. This is something someone sent me the other day. Krishna Chaitanya sent this to me. Listen to this. While this new theocracy is veiled in secularism, it must be understood that the new state-sanctioned institution of knowing was and is a form of mysticism akin to its religious progenitor. Daniel Posner explains how materialism qualifies as a form of mysticism. Materialism qualifies as a form of mysticism. Get this. The materialist is the mystic who believes in an existence without consciousness and preaches subordination to a vague and unaccountable society, variously called public interest, the people, world opinion, the common good, etc. Materialism is also closely aligned with the Kabbalistic mysticism of metaphysical naturalism. At any rate, the mysticism of materialism was designed to divert attention away from the spiritual current of Luciferianism underpinning the technocratic conspiracy. We're going deep here. With the eyes of the masses turned exclusively toward the world of matter, the elite are free to construct their global scientific dictatorship. Meanwhile, fools blindly cite individuals or groups as the source of all their woes. Unable to identify the spiritual principles of Luciferianism that are being tangibly enacted right before their eyes, the masses hopelessly believe that the nullification of certain parties will solve their problems. It's from a book called The Ascendancy of the Scientific Dictatorship.
Oh, wow.
On that.
Well, you hear of the demons like Mayadanava and so on. They have mystic powers, right? To shape shifting and to create illusions and so on. So in that sense, there certainly is a sense of mysticism or mystic power there, right? I mean, that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I'm just like more and more every day, I'm like, we are in the Bhagavatam. Like, these are not just like mythical stories of some ancient times or anything. It's an eternal ongoing clash between the Devas and the Asuras. Should we jump into this video?
As you like.
Okay. Let's bring it up. We'll run it at 125, and then anytime you want to stop and comment on anything, just yell out and I can pause it. And
Okay.
We'll do the same. If you got something that you want to say, just let me know. Done it, David? Yeah. Okay, let's go to this view here. Okay, now let me know, Chandra, if you can hear the audio from this video as it plays. Oh, that's the wrong one. Dun, dun, dun. Share this tab instead. That's the one I want. Here we go.
So it is the most basic truth of biology that the second you reach maturity, you exit adolescence and become an adult, you start dying, you degrade, and then you expire. This is called the aging process. And you maybe first start noticing it in your 40s, long after it's already begun, because there are visible symptoms. You get wrinkly and bald, and if you can't stay away from the pizza, you get a little fat.
No escucho.
And that's kind of...
¿No escuchas?
No, no puedo escuchar.
Okay. Donna Davey can't hear it at this end. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can rejig the settings here. Okay, so...
while you're doing that, I find it interesting how the similarity with the immortality project, right, of Hiranyakashipu, for example, is just like 2.0, right, with the dude that he's interviewing.
Yeah. You couldn't find a more perfect expression of if you think of these things as archetypes, you know, like we are embodying an archetype. People can say like, oh, you know, Siddhapati, he's on Nam Ra's podcast saying he's a demigod. Who does he think he is? I'm like, just Google demigod, devotees are demigods in Prabhupada's writing. And there's some kind of temporary, like, qualities and characteristics of this individual jiva here, but there's also an archetype where I am, which is I am a Vaishnava, I am a demigod on the earth here to carry out the will of Lord Vishnu. And then there's also, you know, some kind of character color here where I am as well, you know, whatever that might be, some combination of qualities. Yeah, so this guy, he couldn't like if you Chandra were to make a modern you know, let's reframe and put Hiranyakashipu's Leela in the modern 2024 context. This is exactly what you'd write, isn't it? If you were to locate that character in this context.
Can I give a comment here? You know, many devotees along the years, I think what they're trying to do is put forward devotees are the servants of the servants of the servants. Great. It is true. We are the servants of the servants. However, once we are living our lives according to the scriptures, and we have this propensity in this lifetime to follow Srila Prabhupada or Krishna consciousness, our consciousness is basically attached to higher powers. And we need to recognize that we are under the protection of Krishna, and we haven't taken birth in this lifetime just to play the humble or pretend to be the humble, when actually inside we're not understanding we are Vaishnavas and we should follow the scriptures, and that is our life. So it says in the Bhagavad Gita, all of Srila Prabhupada in the video says, you know, the devotees are demigods. So is it like an issue with self-confidence that or pretension of humbleness that they don't want to recognize who they really are? Like, be present to that and act according to that? rather than just like, oh yeah, who do you think you are? It's like, I am a Krishna's guy, son or daughter. And that makes me free. That makes me happy. And that makes me joyful. What is the problem with that? But let's go ahead.
Many devotees have skipped the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and as a result, they remain trapped in it,
Quite unfortunate.
crying on the battlefield instead of standing up and fighting. It's my take on that. Anything you want to say to that, Chandra, before we go back to the video?
No, just to be sure that devotees who are watching know that we're the modern Hiranyakashipu that we're talking about hasn't appeared yet in the video, so nobody knows who we're. Yeah, it's not the guy on screen right now. He's just now coming.
Well, I guess it's like the personification of Hiranyakashipu, who he was.
Yeah.
So maybe just let's touch a point where how his persona was in the scriptures, what was his aim, all of that. So people can start looking at, okay, so this is the specific details of this persona. Then how can I recognize that in myself and in other people?
Yeah. Do you want to create for viewers who is this Hiranyakashipu that you're talking about, Chandra?
The guy in the video or the Hiranyakashipu mentioned in the Bhagavatam?
The
That
Bhagavatam one.
The Bhagavatam one, I think most of your viewers are devotees, right? So it's a total rerun.
Just give us the 140 character.
Hiranyakashipu, the older brother of, or the younger brother of Hiranyaksha, who was killed by Vishnu in his boar avatar, and who thinks that he's tricked the system by finding a so-called loophole to being eternal by getting all these blessings from Lord Brahma about not dying inside a house or outside, not in the ground, not in the sky, not to be killed by any weapons, not to be killed by any man or animal, and so on. Only to, with the explicit desire to become immortal, to become God, right? In our sense. And only to be defeated ultimately by Krishna in his form of half man, half lion, the Nishinga Dev avatar.
Yeah, love it. And just for the part that you just missed, Dana Devi, and to make this explicit, Tucker has started this, framing it with a statement from Bhagavad Gita, expressed in his own words, that for one who is born, death is certain. So Hiranyakashipu's got a different idea. He wants to thwart the natural order of the universe. But Tucker started off by saying, if you're born, you're going to die.
Yeah, and the Hiranyakashipu power, we can look into how does it play in people's life these days, in this age where we are.
Yeah.
So we can look into like females or males, they want to beautify themselves. They want to extend their life by, doing extreme treatments or whatever. So what is the background of that is that we want to live longer. We want to be way more beautiful. We want to be more attractive. We want to be powerful. We want to be famous. So that is the whole force behind that.
And that's universal for everyone. But the demons want to do it without God. Okay, let's roll the tape.
There we go.
Kind of inevitable. Or we've been told it's inevitable. But a man called Bryan Johnson has decided it's not necessarily inevitable. He was a very large figure in the tech world, made a ton of dough, and then started thinking about his body and the nature of life and the future of human existence, and has become pretty famous recently for saying that he has, in a way, begun to reverse the aging process and maybe even cracked the code that limits the human lifespan. But watch him explain.
It's hard to believe tech millionaire Bryan Johnson is 46 years old, but no matter his chronological age, he's striving for the biological age of an 18-year-old. His team of 30 doctors utilize all the latest tech. The plan is rigorous. At $2 million a year, a life like this is out of reach for almost everyone.
And this is what I take on a daily basis of supplements. It's alphabetized, and we have a year's supply of everything.
Crazy.
He calls his all-encompassing protocol Project Blueprint.
Blueprint was born out of trying to fix my own problems, but then taking care of my family, my kids and my parents, my friends.
It's generated a steady churn of shock headlines. He once injected himself with his son's plasma. It's part of his quest to live forever, which he believes may happen in our lifetime.
Seems a little spooky, but also interesting. And we're doing this interview because one of our smartest friends suggested, let's talk to this guy, Bryan Johnson. He's genuinely interesting. And he seems to be. He is the founder and CEO, among other companies, a company called Kernel that creates devices.
Hey, you know, on the subject of movies, you know who this reminds me of? This is the Anakin Skywalker arc, you know, with to find the dark power so that your loved ones don't die. Because you notice he said that he wants to solve it for his family attachment to the bodies of the related to his body.
Interesting. Extended skin disease.
Yes.
Correct.
Monitor brain activity, and he joins us now on the set. Bryan, great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
So I've got a bunch of different questions, some practical, some philosophical. Let's start with the practical ones. You're how old are you? 46?
46.
46. You don't look it, I will say, famously. So how, as a practical matter, what's your regimen for slowing or reversing the aging process?
What we do is we measure every organ of my body, my heart, my lungs, my liver, my pancreas, my brain, and we biologically age each organ. So you say, how old is the heart? So even though I'm 46, my heart is 37. My left ear is 64. My lung capacity is age 18. My cardiovascular capacity is the top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. And so you need to know where your baseline is. And so we've measured my entire body. I've become the most measured person in history. And once you have all those numbers, then you can go to therapies and say, can you slow the speed of aging? And can you reverse the aging damage that has happened? And that's been the project for the past 3 years.
And you can, you think?
You can, yeah. For example, I slowed my speed of aging. So inside your body, there's a clock with how fast you're aging. And that clock is determined by DNA methylation. I've reduced my...
Let me say one thing. The idea that you can reduce the aging process, I don't think that goes against our principles, because, correct me if I'm wrong, we hear that the yogi, for example, who does intense pranayama to slow down the breathing process, does so because there's a specific amount of breaths according to your karma.
Yes.
That you're going to live in one body. So if you slow down the breathing process, you'll live longer. So I think whether it's done by pranayama or whatever other more quote unquote advanced allopathic or whatever modern contemporary technology, that in itself, I think finds credence, finds justifications in the Bhagavatam and in the history of Vaishnavism, doesn't it? Or at least in the history of yogic mysticism.
Yeah, the idea that today we measure lifespan in the number of years because it's an objective, obvious measure. But according to that idea from Ayurveda, lifespan is actually measured by the number of breaths that you take. So if you slow down your breathing, the number of years that those breaths will last over elongates. So that's the method of. But you know, he's like. He's such the perfect incarnation of Hiranyakashipu. His whole thing is don't die. It's like literally this. He's like literally wearing it on a shirt on his chest. You know, he's like, I am the archetype of this.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice. It says don't die, right?
And then yeah, I know, it's like it's right there. And he's like, just like you said about Hiranyakashipu, you know, not inside, not outside. He's like, you know, my liver, my heart, my lungs, my ear, like. It's like, let's find all the things and then address them one, you know, until there's no loophole left.
The difference we have to see here, this person is doing, the motivation is, I want to live longer so I can enjoy, and the attachment to family, fame, whatever he wants to be attached. But the yogis, they practice or they extend their lifespan through meditation and God, and Krishna or God, for self-realization. It's a complete different pathway. And if Krishna wants to extend the life of this person because genuinely this person wants to have a self-realized life, then obviously he's going to grant that. But when it comes to this person that are attached to the materialistic way of being or pathway, well, there is I think it's in Srimad Bhagavatam where it says in the first canto, Krishna is very favorable to his devotees, and he will grant whatever they ask according to what Krishna sees is best for them. Mm-hmm. But he's very partial. Is it partial? Impartial. Partial to non-devotees.
Here's a comment from one of the viewers, Mac, the Mac truck. He says, it's all fine to try and live forever, but it only takes a truck hitting you while crossing the road and it's all over. Even if you could live forever, you would need to be so careful everywhere.
I don't
Yeah.
think there will be freedom in that at all. Yeah.
If Krishna wants to kill you, no one can save you.
Mm.
Should we roll on?
Come again? You want to continue
Aging
watching,
by the
right?
equivalent of 31 years. So I now age, in a more generalized way to say it, 7.6 months for every 12 months that pass.
Okay.
So I get the remaining months for free, which is I've slowed down my speed of aging. So the damage that accumulates in my body is much slower. And so we've done this through diet and exercise and sleep and a bunch of other therapies. But yes, we can quantifiably measure how fast am I aging, what are the age of my organs, and then we can use therapies to go about it. And so we do everything according to science and data. This is not me offering an opinion. This is my entire body on display for the world of what happens when you apply the world's best science into a body.
So I'm assuming you quit smoking.
Yeah, never started. But
you never started. Okay, okay, good. So that's like step one. Quit smoking.
Exactly
okay,
right.
Fine. Just to make sure we have that on the record. What specifically do you eat?
I have 3 meals a day. So breakfast
It's
is
nasty.
broccoli, cauliflower, black lentils, garlic, and ginger.
What's that?
What his diet is. I mean, how austere it is. And that's the other thing. Like, okay, you want to do all these austerities to gain immortality, which is impossible, we believe, but the process itself is so tasteless, so austere. Didn't Prabhupada himself, like, when even he enough with the something commission? Remember, there's a story with what was her name? Prabhupada's very dear, the lady, the devotee who brought Tulsi or who planted the first Tulsi. I think you had some interviews with her also.
Govinda Dasi?
Yeah, Govinda Dasi, right? So at one point, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and other devotees like put Prabhupada on a really bland diet. And even there's no question of trying to be immortal. There's no demoniac agenda from Prabhupada, obviously, but just having a slightly less or maybe very distasteful diet compared to his regular tasty prasadam, he even rejected a more bland diet. He said, let the planning commission or the something commission go to hell with the something commission, and just like bring me back my regular tasty food. So anyway, it just made me think of that, because here you have this. I mean, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but listen to what he says. At least maybe there's no meat in there. So, but it's, imagine eating this every day.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this person will be better off following Ayurvedic treatment and doing the pranayam austerity, except that his motivation, his pathway is at the other side.
He thinks he's the body.
Yeah.
That's what his whole problem is there. He wants his body to live forever because he thinks he is the body and he doesn't want to die, which is natural for the living entity because we're spiritual and eternal. We don't want to die. And when we think we're the body, we're in a dilemma which is insoluble within that context of I am the body.
This person actually, if this person could be a devotee or came to the platform of a devotee or Vaishnava, he will do really well because his determination is so great. The austerities he wants to take is wonderful. He will do amazing and get into this self-realization in a very powerful way.
This is the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni says that one cannot attain such fixed meditation on the Supreme Lord as the demons do through their enmity for him.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
The determination is incredible. I cannot believe.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's more disciplined than I
what's
am.
that verse? Nam pramate kurute vikarma. Like there's just like the demoniac is mad. In that sense, you're really mad, mad in the clinically crazy sense, but also mad in terms of a blind, fervent determination.
His fixation is incredible.
The next meal of the day is pea protein, pomegranate juice, macadamia nuts, walnuts, flaxseed, sunflower lecithin, and the final meal of the day is berries, nuts, fruits.
Okay. So pizza and Oreos totally out.
Yeah, they are not in supply at the house.
So why? Like, if you could narrow down the foods that actually do reduce your lifespan and quality of your life, what would it be?
Yeah, what we tried to do with the diet is we said, if you take the frame that every calorie you put into your body has to fight for its life, what would that be? And so we went through, we referenced all the scientific literature. We said, what has the best evidence? And then we put it into my body, then we measure. So if a given thing is supposed to do a thing in the body, it stays. And if it does it, it stays. If not, it's out. And so what I told you is where every calorie is precisely designed. And these are population level studies. This is not just me. Could be applicable to you as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we are very particular about what goes into my body, and not a single calorie goes in that's not backed by science.
What are the ones you definitely would not eat, like, period?
Basically the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad.
It's really, I knew it was bad. Like we all know it's bad. I didn't know how bad. Like once you understand the biochemical processes of what happens in your body when you eat these things, it's awful.
Like what?
I mean, it increases your speed of aging. Like you've got this clock and it's saying how fast until disease develops or something goes wrong. And this clock just, it will increase if you don't eat the right things. If you eat the right things, it will slow down. The wrong things speed it up.
Let me just push you a little more on this question. So, like, what are the things you just would not put in your mouth specifically?
Pizza, donuts, junk food, fast food, processed food.
Pizza is number one.
I don't eat red meat. I'm vegan, but I'm nothing against meat, so people can add meat to their diet. But like red meat is not at the top of the things that makes the cut for science of wanting to extend life.
Interesting. How much time do you spend exercising?
1 hour a day.
That's it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Cardiovascular, weights, and stretching.
So would it be fair to say that someone who followed your diet and your exercise regimen would have similar effects to the ones you've enjoyed?
Yes. So I've done this. I've made my entire project open source. It's for free for everybody. I post my data, my recipes, my processes, my therapies. Everything is shared with everyone. And so tens of thousands of people around the world are doing this, and they're seeing remarkable results. So I've tried to reduce what I do into very simple things that are affordable for everybody.
Those would not include injecting yourself with your son's blood, right?
That's right.
Okay. Why'd you do that?
So we were looking into therapy. So the way we approached Blueprint is we said, so what humans have generated a lot of science over the past couple decades. And we said, let's take all the science, let's rank them according to power laws of the best science ever done. Let's grade the evidence. Then we'll see what we can apply from those into my body. And plasma infusions were one that was interesting. And so I was looking at it myself. And one day I was talking to my dad and he said, I need to tell you, I had this really scary situation where he's in the legal profession. He said, I wrote a brief. I walked away. I came back and I saw that my words were a jumbled mess. I was experiencing cognitive lapse and I wasn't aware of it. He's 71. He said, I'm terrified of losing my mind.
Yes.
And I said, Dad, how interesting that you bring this up, because right now the team and I are talking about plasma infusions and that some of the studies are looking at the effects on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and other kinds of things like that. And so I said, if you're interested, I'm happy to give you a liter of my plasma. And then my 17-year-old son was there and he's like, hey, if you guys are doing it, I'm in. Like, great, we'll make this a family affair. And so my son
sharing the plasma.
Yeah. So my son gave me a liter of plasma. I gave my dad a liter of plasma. And the data showed that in me, there was no effect, that my biomarkers didn't change. But in my dad, his speed of aging reduced by 25 years. So he was aging at the rate of a 71-year-old. And after the plasma infusion and continued for 6 months, it lessened to a 45-year-old. So his clock dramatically slowed down.
Interesting. Did he feel better?
He did. And his colleagues were saying, what's up? This is, you're hot. You're on fire. What's happening?
Well, isn't there this thing, like, for example, in Mad Max 2, but I think it also happens in the quote unquote real world. These babies, right? Or these young people are their life air is sucked, so that it's the bad guy can drink the elixir and extend his life. I'm not a huge connoisseur of under hidden or secret societies and stuff and demoniac rituals and stuff, but we do. Isn't there a term, a technical or chemical? What is it?
Adrenochrome, it's called. It's the adrenochrome conspiracy. I mean, having heard that, I want to do it. No doubt. I know that it's happening because I would do it personally. It's also in the Bhagavatam. It's Maharaj Yayati, right?
From the medical point of view, the plasma contains different
what would you do? Sorry to interrupt, Montague, but what would you do? What specifically would you do?
If you take this plasma, it'll increase your performance. I'm all about it. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. It's just an absolute no-brainer. Yeah.
But not from a obviously not from a tortured kid or something, or murder.
Well, I'd do it in the mode of I'd do it in the mode of passion and goodness rather than the mode of passion and ignorance. But it wouldn't take much. If I was a materialist and I believed that there were no afterlife consequences and that this life is the only thing, then 100% it's like nothing. There are no consequences, right?
Right.
It's a hypothetical if.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking from the medical point of view, the plasma contains different minerals, materials, vitamins, multivitamins that are good for your cellular aging process. Now, also in the medical field, they use the plasma for people that have osteoarthritis. So they inject the plasma into that area, and then that also rejuvenate the cells that are breaking down or DNA is not doing well. So they do that. And not only, they did in the hip area. There is a lot of plasma thing that the people need if the plasma is going down for the people that are in emergency situations.
Car crash operation.
If they lose a lot of blood and all of that. So they do that, the replacement. And we do the iron replacement, the plasma replacements, and other things that the person needs. So they can be used in the medical field. The plasma also can be used for beauty treatments and also for hair fall. And it does work.
And this is in the Bhagavatam. It was Maharaj Yayati. Remember, he got cursed. And then the only way he could reverse the curse was by taking his son's youth.
Right.
And then so he approached his son Puru. Maybe his son was Puru. And then took his son's youth away from him. Okay, let's roll on.
Mm-hmm.
Was plasma from his son.
It's the only therapy that he did.
Does it need to be a blood relative?
No, just blood typed.
Okay, so now we're getting into the theories about taking the blood of children.
I mean, so this is very common. We do organ transplants. We'd all donate blood. Like, we've had that experience in our life. So it's just in a slightly different frame, but it's very much a part of.
Well, it's a recognizable frame. And by the way, I'm not endorsing any of this.
Yeah.
But there is a frame, to use your word, on the internet of like super rich tech billionaires living forever on the blood of children.
Yeah.
Not a super appealing frame, I would say.
Yeah.
This is that.
Yeah, and we did it openly. We made a video out of it. We made fun of it. We made a meme out of it. So yeah, this is how we've done the entire project. Is everything's open sourced. It's always discussed. We share all the data. But yes, it definitely feeds into many of the there's a lot of theories about what happens behind the scenes with rich people.
Yeah, and not all of them seem baseless, I guess.
That's a lot of people said. Is like, we finally got a glimpse. So you're showing us what's happening.
Kind of, yeah, like the tech oligarch taking the blood of children. Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I wonder, as I was reading about you, the effect on you and your life. Like, what's it like to focus on your body that much?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's there's one thing about building a product. Like, we oftentimes,
and as people, as us, as devotees who try to identify as souls, it's kind of funny to hear that. You know, how does it feel to identify with? You think of your body as, you know, all this time. He's like, I love it. I find that funny.
At least he's honest.
I can relate to him, actually. I mean, I've always said this. You know, this is in the third edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Oh, Arjuna, you are not the body, but you might as well have a good one.
Is our immortality. What we produce in our careers, our reputation, our accomplishments. And when you think about it this way, you are the product. You are your own best creation. And so it's been energizing. I've loved being consumed by it. I think that, it's one of the happiest endeavors I've done in my life.
Really? Mm-hmm. I've taken the opposite approach, and I'm not claiming it's superior to yours, but I had my appendix swell up and burst, and I had, of course, taken out. I never asked like what the appendix is because I didn't really want to know. I don't know what a spleen is. Like, I've really made an effort to not focus on those things because it seems like a lot of self-focus, and it seems like a short trip from there to, say, narcissism, which is obviously death. So are you worried about that?
My observation really is philosophical. I did this thought experiment where when I was 21, I came back from Ecuador. I'd lived among extreme poverty for 2 years, and
are you still there, Chandra?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My camera heats up, so now I've switched to my laptop.
Okay.
Webcam.
Laptop webcam. Cool. This is interesting here. He gives a bit of his background. He was a Mormon missionary in Ecuador for 2 years. Did his overseas missionary work there.
I had this burning
desire.
On
a Mormon mission.
On a Mormon mission, yeah.
Yes.
And I had this burning desire to be useful to the world. I didn't know what or how. And so I thought, I'll make a whole bunch of money by age of 30. And then when I'm 30 years old and have a whole bunch of money, I'll decide what to do then. And so I've been searching for this mission my entire life. And upon doing that, I organized dinners with my smartest friends. And I said, let's imagine we're existing in 2050. And this was 2016 at the time. And the world is amazing. What did we do in 2016 that would make that possible? And then I listened very intently to everybody's responses. And then I put them in a box. And I made a rule that I can't do anything inside that box. I have to do something outside that box. And what nobody was working on was trying to solve death. That it was always inconceivable that you could try to legitimately conquer death. And that's what I set my sight on.
But what's interesting, I mean, now, okay, so we're at the philosophical part of this, and my friend who recommended this interview said, he's really interesting on the practical stuff, the serum transfers and all that, but he's much more interesting on the philosophical questions, and I think you will be. So let me ask, you grew up in a Mormon world, that believed and taught you that it had already solved the question of death through Jesus.
Exactly.
You no longer think that.
It would be helpful if there was some evidence.
Yep. Okay. So you've abandoned that worldview, or at least you're agnostic, I guess would be the word on that worldview, right? Not to get too personal, but I'm just interested because a lot of people say, religious people, Christians would say, well, we've already solved death,
right?
Don't need to solve that; it's solved. But there's also, of course, no evidence that eternal life is possible in a corporal sense, physical sense,
right?
Because it's never been done. So, what gives you faith that you can do it?
Yeah. If you look at the speed in which artificial intelligence is advancing, we are gaining new abilities we've never had before in every domain of society. You pair that with our ability that we now, in this moment, we can predictably design biology and the physical world, atom by atom. You bring those things together, for the first time in human history, one can say with a straight face that we may be able to go after death. Now, I'm not saying we can, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm saying that it is rational and reasonable and supported by where the realities are today. And so with what I've been trying to do is to show a glimmer of hope that, because what I'm really trying to do is demonstrate age escape velocity. That is, so when 1 year of time passes, I remain the same biological age. So we're never going to arrest aging altogether. But if let's say I age 0.4, and then I can reverse that 0.4 with therapies and stay the same age biologically. Right now, I'm 0.64. So I've already started at 1, and I'm all the way down to 0.64. If we keep on inching down, it might change everything. It's one thing to have a philosophical conversation. It's another thing to say, I can be youthful and have energy and feel great. I think everybody wants that.
100%. Live long and prosper.
Yes.
For sure. And that seems like a virtuous goal. And what you're doing to that extent is virtuous. I just wonder if, as someone who grew up in a religious community, if part of you, maybe deep inside, fears that when you start to say things like we can defeat death, that you won't be smote down by the God of the universe.
Yeah.
For assuming his role.
Yeah.
Do you worry about that?
Not in the least bit. Never crossed my mind.
You're either very brave or very foolish.
Never crossed my mind.
Really?
Very,
So
very,
when
very
you
full.
say, I can defeat death, aren't you saying I'm God?
I'm saying that the universe speaks in irony.
That's for sure.
And that the story we've told is that God created us, and the actual story may be that we are going to create God.
Isn't this just like Hiranyakashipu in 2024?
Yeah.
It's like, and he's not like a classically kind of evil person. He's actually quite a likable guy. He's worried about his family. If you look at Hiranyakashipu, a big driver for his whole thing was his brother Hiranyaksha's death, and his enmity towards Vishnu was that he blamed Vishnu for that. And then what makes that story of Hiranyakashipu so poignant is, the intense bodily attachment that he had, and then that his son Prahlad became a devotee of Lord Vishnu. It was like his sworn enemy.
Right.
So painful.
Yeah. Salt in the wound.
Yeah.
Salt
100%.
on the wound.
What kind of God?
This is the question we face as a species. I mean, right now we have organized society around capitalism. We strive to make money, have power and wealth. We engage in warfare. Everyone's angling for their best interest. And I'm suggesting that this is not about me trying to live forever. This is me trying to answer the most pressing question in existence. What do we do as a species? Now, when death is inevitable, you're going to have an answer like, well, I'm going to live fast and die young, or I'm going to conquer territories and be immortal for my quest, or I'm going to make up your meaning of life game. But if death is not inevitable, we can extend our lifespans to some unknown horizon. The meaning-making games we have as a species all change.
Of course.
And that's what I'm suggesting. This moment is that.
I mean, many people through history have reached similar conclusions, but not with similar technology to affect those conclusions, right? So, or those outcomes. But history laughs at those people, and the story of history is men addled with hubris being humiliated.
Yes.
And
that's a good
so,
point.
I mean, I would say there's a great deal of evidence that you will be crushed and humiliated.
Right? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, right? The 4 unescapable conditions of embodied life. So he's not phrasing it in those 4 terms, especially not with the notion of birth, because Tucker Carlson, being a Christian, doesn't believe in reincarnation as we do. But the theme of being ultimately humiliated, quote unquote, by God and his insurpassable, insurmountable and impossible to bypass laws is a theme that we can identify with as devotees, I think.
We should definitely. On Namras and I made this point in 2021 on the podcast. This has infected ISKCON because during the pandemic, we didn't hear preaching about Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, the kind of like you just go and read through Prabhupada's lectures where he says you cannot conquer disease. You solve one, another one will come. Instead, what we got was something more akin to what Bryan Johnson's presenting, which is through the miracle of scientific development and the miracle of these new technologies, we will be able to defeat sickness. And ISKCON leaders and the ISKCON official media started pumping out that message, like, hey, this is why you should take this new experimental drug from the pharmaceutical companies. And at the time, I said, this is just off-brand. Even if it were correct, it's not our preaching. Our preaching is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Just repeat that message. And I was like, and what happens if it turns out that, as we can expect from asuras, conditioned living entities who make mistakes and have the cheating propensity, what happens if it turns out that this thing is bogus and you've gone off message? Just stay on the same message, preach the same thing. You cannot solve disease. Only Krishna consciousness, chant Hare Krishna. So I see that this pervasive mentality and faith in science is going to solve the problem has started to infect our organization.
The other thing this person says, we create God.
Yeah.
And so if we look into like what God or Krishna is doing and how he's sustaining the whole earth and other universes, and we look into what this person is doing, trying to reverse his aging so he can extend his life more, and now he thinks, I'm God because I create God.
In the 12th canto, Hiridananda, I think it's the 12th canto, Hiridananda Das Goswami, in his purports that he wrote in there, he has a great defeater for that argument. He says, that the modern people, they say like, God is just like a psychological crutch for people, that human beings have the psychological need for God, and so they create this idea of God. And then he gives this argument. He says, we can see that human needs correspond to things that exist to fulfill those needs. So humans need air exists. Humans need water exists. And if human beings have a need for God, this indicates that God exists. I thought that was a great argument, although you can defeat that by saying that would indicate that belief in God exists, but not necessarily that God exists.
Yeah, but the other thing, like we have to look into this is like, okay, so do you think you can create water? So far, no one can create water. Do you think you can create air? Well, actually, you cannot create air because it's already existent. Can you create the sun, the heat? No, you cannot. So how can you say that you created God? Unfortunately, you can't. You fighting, or this person is fighting in decreasing the age, his aging, and trying to fight against death. Death is certain. The moment you take birth, you are dying. And how can you defeat that? You won't. Unfortunately, he can't. Go ahead.
Chandra, your thoughts?
I can only concur on this one.
Yeah, it sounds, what he's saying sounds reasonable. It sounds rational. Modern people today would be like nodding along with this, a lot of people. And it's vulnerable to all of Prabhupada's just basic four on the floor preaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For saying that, just based, and I hope that's not the case, of course, but every other living person who's reached the conclusion that you've reached has been crushed and humiliated in the end. We laugh at him. So what makes you different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's likely inevitable that I will die the most ironic death. That is guaranteed to happen.
That is such. By the way,
That's the story of Hiranyakashipu, right? That's the whole arc. He tries to like close all the loopholes, and then he dies the most ironic death. That's the Nrsingadev Leela.
And you know what? The thing is, although he wants to crush death and he wants to go against the grain that what actually the existence of human beings are, for some reason, he has the certainty that he is going to die.
And he's playing a role. He's a demigod who's incarnated on the earth to demonstrate the Hiranyakashipu Leela in front of all the humans, put it in their face.
Maybe he's not a demigod, but never mind.
Yeah, no, without doubt.
Message of the New Testament. I mean, that's the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
It's the irony
Yes.
book.
Yes.
The first will be last. The meek shall inherit the earth.
Exactly.
Like, no, you're.
So I will.
We agree on that.
I'll get hit by a bus, or I will choke taking a pill, or
You'll die of a broccoli OD.
Yeah, exactly. So it's guaranteed to happen. And so me aside, I think the
Okay, now I like you. I think that's just a wonderful thing to say. You're right. That is wisdom.
it's guaranteed to happen. And so hopefully this lives past me. But I think if you have do another thought experiment with me. Let's imagine we're hanging out in the 25th century. We're listening to what they're saying about the early 21st century. Now, in the same way we look at the 15th century, we compress that entire century into 10 things, 15 things.
Yes, that's right.
99% of what happened then is just washed away.
Of course.
We don't care. It's just
And there's no
1%.
record of it either.
Exactly.
Yes.
In this moment,
Let me a verse that comes to mind, if I may, is from Bhagavatam 2:112. That famous verse, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest.
Beautiful. Yes. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, if one thing goes round, it's like 10 or 20 points for him. It says, physical illness with Hari Bhajan is preferable to physical health without Hari Bhajan.
Yeah.
Because in a sense, this person is perturbed by the experience of, I want to live longer. I want to, I don't imagine how much thought process go into this person that actually takes the joy of the simple things he's doing in life.
There's nothing intrinsically wrong with his whole thing. It's just missing Krishna consciousness. It's all the zeros without the one, isn't it? It's like Prabhupada said, all of this thing is like it has no value unless you add Krishna to it. You say add Krishna to this, it's great, Devotees saying, stop cooking with oil in the thing, and, we're eating too much halava and sugar. And I mean, the guy is just basically saying the same thing, except without Krishna. Better to eat halava and die chanting Hare Krishna than to live forever like this.
Oh, Prashadam halava.
Halava OD. But maybe, to live like this in the mode of goodness with Krishna consciousness.
16.
More recording, of course, of our existence.
Yes.
They did, but we're still going to be compressed in time. And so 99% of what we do will be washed away. There'll be a small fraction that actually matters to future generations.
Yes.
And so if you ask,
Or they'll even know.
Let me crank it up to 1.5 and see if we can still understand what's being said.
About or have any way of knowing about.
or they'll care about.
Yes, that's
So
right.
if you pose that question from the 25th century, and so that really, for me, creates this clarity of thought. Like if you try to really clear your head of all the noise happening now, what do they say right now that we did as a species in this moment that allowed intelligence to thrive in this part of the galaxy? And this is what I would say is this is when Homo sapiens realized that they reached a technological threshold where the only objective of existence was to continue to exist at the basic level. So this is don't die. That when we're on the eve.
I don't know if you can see this, but you see that bottle that's sitting in between them on the table? It says snake oil blueprint. So that must be his Blueprint is the name of his thing, so this might be one of his products. It's called snake oil. The whole thing's hyper ironic. It's very meta.
Did you? Okay, sorry. Do you observe in this person he has more of goodness in him?
Yeah.
He has a more of passion to create this with the aim of being in a mode of ignorance. Did you see that?
Yeah.
This is what I can see. It's like, wow. It's like we're meant to be like getting out of mode of ignorance, go to the mode of passion and go to mode of goodness. To at least have more friendly view of getting into the spirituality, you know.
He doesn't eat red meat. He eats a diet like a yogi, right? Fruits and berries, and the only thing he needs to do is go and visit a householder in the early morning to get some milk.
And his mode of passion is shown by his way of like, I'm going to do this, and he's so driven by it. So that is the mode of passion, and the result is mode of ignorance.
Yeah, because his context is that he's the body.
Yeah,
the fundamental.
There we go.
Motivating tamagun.
Giving birth to superintelligence. And we have to ask all the basic questions of our existence. Who are we? Why do we exist? How do we operate in society? Do I have a job? Do I don't? Like, what are the answers to these basic questions? And what I'm suggesting is our existence is going to be compressed into one statement we can all say, which is don't die. And don't die is the most played game by everybody on planet Earth every second of every day. We breathe every few seconds. We look both ways before we cross the street. We throw out moldy food. So don't die is played more than capitalism. Don't die is played more than religion. The most played game in existence. And that's the thing we can rally behind in this moment.
Prabhupada does say that the out of the four, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, the defending is the most prominent. So in that sense, the don't die really is the corresponding thing to defending.
I think that's partly true, but the fact that you have to articulate it suggests it's not entirely true. In other words, the way that human beings differ from other animal species is not just language and the opposable thumb. It's that humans are the only animal that kill themselves. They need to be convinced that life is worth living.
Yeah.
And I wonder what you make of that. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know why, but that has always struck me as the main distinction between people and, say, dogs or pigs or horses or any other animal. Why? Or monkeys, for that matter. Why? Why do people kill themselves? Why do they need to be convinced not to die?
Yeah, in some ways, we're brilliant. In many ways, we are idiotic and insane. Like I had this problem where I would overeat every night at 7 p.m. To deal with the stresses of the day. I would eat too much food, junk food. I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now. Why did I do that? Why did I inflict this harm upon myself every night? And afterwards, I'd say, I'm changing tomorrow. This is my last day, no more. But I did it anyways. I just couldn't stop myself from these self-destructive behaviors. It's such a weird thing. And so now what I did is But
hold on, what do you make of that? I mean, and every person has experienced that, whether it's drinking or sex or food is very, very common in this country. But why does that happen? Because it kind of puts a lie to to use your term frame again, to the evolutionary biology frame that we use to explain human behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why do we act against ourselves? And is it us acting against ourselves, or is it a force outside of ourselves acting on us? Like, so what's the answer?
Agreed. And we treat planet Earth the same way we treat our own bodies.
Of course.
We treat each other.
But why?
Exactly.
I mean, I understand. Look, evolutionary biology, common sense, explains why I might hurt you.
Yeah.
To steal your stuff.
Exactly.
And to make it more likely that my kids reproduce and my line continues. I mean, it's not hard. It's wrong, but it's understandable. Why do I hurt myself in ways that don't bring me pleasure, that are purely destructive? You can see why people believe in demons.
Yeah.
I don't think you do believe in demons. So what do you believe? What is that?
Yeah. I mean, on this question, there's probably many answers on why. The solution that I come up with is I endeavored to build an algorithm that could take better care of me than I can myself.
But you still have to follow it, and you still you have to want to build it. So, but you're eliding over, and I am too. I don't have the answer. I don't want to pretend that I do. I think they're clearly demonic forces. I think they're evil spirits that are doing this to people. That's my view. That's my view. But so I've kind of explained it without any evidence at all of noticing. But it seems to me that you have to explain it too. Like, what is that? Yeah. How could we ever knowingly act against our own interests? Where do those compulsions come from? You said they're biological. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything.
Isn't this the question from the Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna asked Krishna? Like, by what is one impelled to sinful action, even
I was
unwillingly?
just thinking, it is lust only.
Yeah. Which covers the consciousness of the living entity.
What is the answer?
I don't know the answer. I would suggest it's a flaw.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that this is what we will solve with our technology.
But it still requires the decision, which is a conscious decision, that's a good thing, that's preferable to self-destruction.
Yeah. Sometimes though, like think of this like Ozempic. So let's just set aside side effect profile. Let's set aside any of those questions. If I can take a pill that turns off my hunger, I don't have to be fat anymore, I'm in.
Well, but if you're approaching, I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. But if you're approaching it logically, you couldn't turn off the data of, as I think you put, the side effect profile. Like, what's the downside? That's part of the calculation, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, let's assume the drug will get better, will minimize side effects and in time. But what I'm saying is all of us understand that these self-destructive behaviors are not good.
Why do we assume that? Like, where's that moral framework come from?
Yeah.
If there's no God. I don't get that.
I mean, even the basics, like we just feel bad in the morning. We feel cloudy. We feel grumpy. We feel depressed. We feel anxious. And it's because we don't sleep well and we're stressed and we eat terrible food and we don't exercise. So like we don't do the positive things. We know we feel great when we do it, and we do the bad things that make us feel bad continually. So we all just know intuitively that
We do. I'm not, of course, and we all feel that way. I felt that way this morning, actually.
It's interesting because Tucker's asking him, where do you get your grounding for what is good and what is bad without the existence of God? And he points to how I feel.
And Tucker Carlson, to be fair, is also pointing to a biblical eschatology, which, I don't accept lock, stock, and barrel.
Mm-hmm.
I accept the idea of the forces of evil fighting against the forces of light, that equivalent which you bring up often and legitimately so, demons, the suras against the asuras. But I don't know. I was planning to tell you that, like the sort of apocalyptic Armageddon, so that we can have the second coming of Christ, right? I mean, that's the main pop goes the weasel kind of the last surprise, or the punchline of the storyline is the second coming of Christ, and this is where, and so therefore I tend to try to take the good or the thing that correspond to our worldview, but sometimes I think a lot of this type of rhetoric discreetly, because they don't want to make fools of themselves, they don't want to pose as overtly religious, or at least overtly as gun-ho Bible lovers. But they do point to a very Christian eschatology, and while there are similarities with the Vedic eschatology, it's I don't think we as Vaishnavas believe in Armageddon. We believe in cycles. We don't. So anyway, that's just a small little note I wanted to. I'm grateful that I was able to in there. I was thinking what you think, because you notice sometimes devotees, like, they really hop on the bandwagon of whistleblowers, and they have great, legitimate, valid whistles, or they blow legitimate sounds, but when you scratch a little bit, a lot of them tend to be evangelical Christian. It's funny because I always glorify the evangelical Christians when it comes to dress code and how they do church, but in terms of biblical, in terms of eschatology, it's like, okay, I don't know about Jesus coming back again. I don't know about, Armageddon coming in 6 months, and we can't wait. And so therefore let's exaggerate maybe, or let's always try to find the devil behind, do we even accept the person of the devil? We accept Kali as an, is it Kali? Is it just forces of Kali, or is there an actual personality of Kali, which there is, at least in Chaitanya Mangal, if I'm not mistaken. But you get my point. Like, I don't think there's a full perfect matching, a transparent match between the Christian worldview and the Vaishnava
I get
worldview.
what you're saying. There is, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, when Parikshit Maharaj, it's the appearance of Kali, right? He finds this man dressed as a king beating a cow, or beating a bull, who's standing on one leg. Like the eschatology of the final climactic battle between the forces of the Asuras and the Suras, and the second coming, if you will, that could be mapped onto the appearance of the Golden Age within Kali Yuga, which was presaged and caused by the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, the Golden Avatar, in this particular Kali Yuga. And Srila Prabhupada spoke about that actually quite a lot, and he identified it as international Asuric or atheistic communism versus the devotees. And he put up America, actually, as he said, if America can fight against communism if they become Krishna conscious, if they become actually God conscious and don't succumb to atheism themselves. But I get what you're saying. There's a whole kind of Armageddon apocalyptic, let's immanentize the eschaton, let's make it happen now kind of vibe.
Well, in a subtle way, we can actually say it. Yeah. maybe they are not directly. The thing here is being so fanatical, oh, Jesus is going to come, it's going to look like a white guy with a bear, whatever. You know, they have this vision that it's going to happen. And they think that it's actually, you know, personified, that in person, you know, body-wise, it's going to come. But if you look in their biblical thing, because I come from a Christian family too, we have Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada
Is the second coming of Jesus
he
Christ.
came 50 years ago or so to what? Now, oh, you know, like the evil will come, the evil this, and so on. So it's like, hold on a second. We actually are in the middle of it, where the demonic forces that are so subtle, they're indoctrinating our children, indoctrinating every adult. The governments are participating in this. People are participating in this. The richest people are participating in this. And then we are in the middle of the battle. Yes, we are in the middle of the battle. It's just like the way how the vision they have is completely different to what we are, the way we see things. So perhaps just be a little bit open to see what else is happening. Parallels and the subtleties of things.
And there's some differences too.
Obviously. Yeah.
Anything more you want to say about that, Chandra, before we keep going?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Mentioned it. But I wonder if it's not reductionist to assume that they're all biological in cause. And so maybe there's a spiritual component. Maybe I'm not living my life the right way. Maybe I have done wrong and haven't repented of it. I mean, there are other potential causes, no?
Agreed. And this is what I'm suggesting, that no matter where someone is coming from, whatever your origin, the game to play as a species right now, in this moment, is don't die. Right now, we play capitalism and make money and earn.
I'm with you there. That's obviously a hollow, stupid dead end, and it's not actually even working. So, I mean, it's not working by its own terms. It's not working, right? You don't have a middle class anymore, so clearly that's not working, right? I couldn't agree with your skepticism more when you conclude that, like, the current program is absurd. Clearly it is. We need a better way. But I do think it's like at the core of your assumptions is an unanswered question, which is, why is living better than dying? Why do people seek to kill themselves? What the hell is going on there? Why?
I mean, so I have gone through my life in a series of moments that has led me to distrust almost everything, including my mind. So initially, growing up in a religion,
wise.
I mean, I grew up in a religion, and then I found out that that entire thing had been packaged in a way where it's like, we're good and everyone else is bad. And then I went through a process of behavioral psychology where I realized that I have all these shortcuts of hypocrisy and irrationality, that I am a disaster as a human. I'm blind to my own behavior. I went through it with authorities that I trusted in other ways. And so I don't know what to trust in reality outside of things that I find more stable, like physics and math. And so if I try to ground myself in reality of what can I trust, my mind is very far down the list of things I trust.
I agree.
And so when I pose a question to myself of, do I want to live or do I want this or that? I don't trust what I have to say ever. And so I don't know, are we really the authority on what we want? Have we ever been accurate in making those guesses?
No.
So why would
I have to say, I disagree, I think, very strongly with your conclusions, but I so admire the way you're reaching them, because I think the root of wisdom is knowing not to trust yourself. I always say to my kids that
Can you see a contradiction here of this person?
What's that?
Like, the contradiction is like, okay, so a scientific thing, I need to find the proof that we cannot die or whatever, fighting against death. And that is a product of the mind. Now he's saying, I cannot believe what my mind's saying. I cannot even trust my own mind. It's like, okay, brother, where are you?
Yeah, there's no grounding.
No, there is no grounding.
Without Shastra.
Because the guy is thinking, my mind says I can defeat death, and the way to do it is in a scientific process, so I can prove it. And now he's saying, hey, I cannot even.
No, he's actually he's clear that he has no grounding. And he's like, well, it's postmodernism. It's that there is no objective grounding, and so you just create whatever's the best thing that you can think of to create.
Yeah, okay, there's two things here. So now the question is, you are not grounded.
Looks like Chandra wants to say something to that.
No, I liked your comment about postmodernism.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
One guy I don't trust is me. because it's true.
Yeah.
And so I really admire your honesty. You seem like you're coming at this as honestly as you possibly can. But anyway, whatever. I have a lot of thoughts. But
it's Charvaka Muni. Prabhupada says, Charvaka Muni says, somehow get some ghee and enjoy life. Like there is no God, there's nothing, so somehow get some ghee and enjoy life. Postmodernism, that's their conclusion. Hedonism
That's funny. Yeah.
in the mode of goodness.
But the subtle message here is like, hey, don't trust your mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
He is just confirming, don't trust your mind. But according to the mind's dictation, he's doing what he's doing now, trying to defeat death, because his mind is creating all of these critical questions. And the conclusion is, don't trust your mind.
And Chandra, you look like you wanted to say something there.
No, I mean, I want to. No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Keep playing.
I don't mean to interrupt you. So, what would happen if people lived forever?
Yeah.
Why would that be good? I mean, the accumulated sadness of life is hard to take.
Yeah.
Do you talk to old people at all?
I do.
Yeah. And so there is like ships in a harbor, barnacles
Yeah.
attach, and the weight of that over time becomes immense.
Yeah.
And, memories, and there's just a lot in the human life that is hard, and again, it accumulates. And so, why would you want to extend that?
So imagine we travel back in time 1 million years.
Yes.
And we're hanging out with Homo erectus.
Yes.
They have an axe in their hand.
Yes.
And we say, where's shelter? Where's food? And where's danger? We listen. If we say now wax poetic on the future of the species, what is the future of intelligence? We laugh. They have nothing to say about computers or the internet, or that there's a microscopic world, or how large the universe is. They have no idea. And in this moment, if we contemplate that we may be just as primitive as Homo erectus, we think we are at the apex of intelligence. Is that true? We're giving birth to superintelligence. Could that intelligence, relative to us, make us caveman-like in a similar fashion, or more so? And this is what I'm saying in this moment. It's a absolute invitation for humility, that we may know nothing about existence, or very little, or that what's coming our way may transform existence to ways that we can't even fathom. That's how significant. That's how significant the change is going to be in the coming years and decades. It's unfathomable to us.
So this is one of those interesting conversations I've had in a while, because you're saying things that I think are almost beautiful in their wisdom. This is an invitation to humility. Yes, all of life is an invitation to humility. That's the root of wisdom and the root of happiness. But then your conclusion is, let's live forever.
No. The conclusion is, don't die. That's it. That is the sole objective. And so I want to live tomorrow. I've got stuff going on tomorrow. I'm excited about tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's not to live forever. It's this, because we understand things on these short time frames. And humans will do things like, a person doesn't want to die when walking across the street, but they'll smoke a cigarette while they're doing so.
I've done it, yeah.
So we have these really weird behaviors where we don't want to die, just not now.
Yeah, I wish, and I'll stop at this, but I just wish we had a better handle on why we have those impulses. I feel like it's very hard to proceed with any assumption at all until we understand what just happened, or what's happening now, why we're acting the way that we are. And if we don't have a consensus on why people hurt themselves, pretty hard to make any future plans at all.
Because you see here, he's trying to he's trying repeatedly to insert, because, and he even said it at the beginning, because it's the devil. And it's the devil. It's the devil trying to influence you. And if once you accept the devil, then you've got Jesus, and then bingo, your worldview is successful. Just a comment.
Yeah, I guess in a more abstract sense, he's positing, the solution is God, or some component of the self that's non-material, because this guy's entire conception of the self is purely material, and so Tucker's trying to point to, like, here are some problems that you can't account for with material. Like he said, the only thing that makes humans different from the other animals that he can see is that humans kill themselves, whereas the other animals don't. And I think what he's pointing to is he's pointing, rather than Prabhupada would say, human beings are the only ones who can engage in self-realization. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but you're preaching at a Sunday feast or a preaching center, and someone says, how do we know that? Because we can't understand what the birds are saying, right? So I eventually had to modify that to say, as far as we can tell, but Tucker's got a good angle on it here, because that's pretty much indisputable for a materialist, that you say, well, humans are the only ones who kill themselves. Why is that? I thought that was a good take on that.
If we could actually look at a self-destruction score across time, would our time and place have a disproportionately high level because of how effective food companies are at addictiveness?
There's no question.
How good drug companies are making drugs, and how social media that we basically are in this dystopic capture.
It's totally true.
Of self-destruction.
It's 100% true. Of course, I mean, I'm not that much older than you are. We both grew up in a country that was nowhere near the self-destructive. I mean, you grew up in a Mormon community in Utah, not particularly self-destructive people, actually.
Right.
And I mean, as a high compliment. But the whole country was less self-destructive. Of course, we respond to our circumstances, our environment, and animals do too. You cage them, they kill each other. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
but the impulse may be exacerbated in certain periods by the environment, but the impulse is constant through time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's ask this through another frame. Here's a thought experiment for you. So if you had access to an algorithm that could give you the best physical, mental, and spiritual health of your life, but in exchange for that, you needed to follow the algorithm's suggestions. Go to bed on time when it said, go to bed when it said, eat what it said. Would you say yes, or would you say no?
Of course I would say no. I'm not getting bossed around by a machine. Sorry. And I also don't think that any philosophy that doesn't include God can improve my spiritual health, because what does that even mean? What does that mean actually? How can your spiritual health improve if you don't acknowledge the supernatural?
Yes, I've been holding dinners at my house for the past couple of years. I get 10 to 12 people together, and I pose this question, and then we have a 2.5-hour dialogue about the future of existence. And your response is perfect, because you told me no way you're doing it, and you gave me a list of things.
I'm not letting the toaster oven boss me around either. Just not.
Now, so what's interesting is the next question I ask in this conversation is, now imagine the 25th century is observing our conversation right now, and they observe your answers. What do they observe are the characteristics and morals and ethics of the early 21st century? So it flips people's mindset from the knee-jerk reaction of, I hate this idea, to being observational on what are the characteristics of being human now. And I do this because it is so hard to see time and place. We look at the 15th century.
That's right. No, I agree.
Very clear and clean. We're like, oh, they're idiots for this. And like, maybe they were onto this, but we have this blindness to ourselves in this moment.
Yes.
And so we have to do these thought experiments. You have to tease yourself out very slowly. People's responses, like they tell me they experience multiple existential crises in that dinner. Like they dip down, they come back up for air, dip back down, come back up. It's a really challenging experience because it challenges everything you understand about existence.
Do people keep accepting your dinner invitations? I mean, if I know that I'm going to eat at Bryan's house but have an existential crisis before the entree is served, that's a lot.
People say it's one of, if not the most consequential conversations of their entire life.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, actually, because you have one quality which I, again, really admire, which is your dedication to seeing things outside of the narrow tube that we all live in, seeing the bigger picture. And I love that. I think it's so important and wonderful to hear it. You made a bunch of allusions to superintelligence, presumably the AI we keep hearing about.
Yeah.
And since you're in that business and this is what you think about, describe what that means exactly. What will AI mean? How fast, like in 10 years, like specifically?
Nobody knows. What we do know is that software can be programmed and mathematical functions can be organized to do things that we humans do, and they can do it much better, and even do things that we humans can't do. So we've seen this where I just took my first self-driving car ride in San Francisco last week. Held it, got in, entirely autonomous. And that's a remarkable feat that is capable of driving a car. It reads medical imagery, right? It flies airplanes. So we know algorithms are very good at doing many things, and they're getting better all the time. And so what I'm observing is I'm saying that AI is progressing at a speed that is impressive, and maybe even unfathomable to how we can observe it much faster.
That's right.
And it's doing these things that we humans do, and it's going to increasingly do those things, and it will help us achieve our objectives. So we're going to say yes to it. Now, when these algorithms become as good or better at being us than we are, then it creates an invitation to say, who are we? And that's what I'm saying is AI is going to create a series of existential crises for the species. It'll be basic ones like, do we trust our government? Who's in authority? Who verifies identity? All these basic things we've settled as society, roughly, is going to call into question everything at a speed that won't allow us cycle time to really fill it out. And so
you know what? This is a difference I have with Arjuna Gallagher, who has the Theology Unleashed channel.
Yeah.
See, my position is that the Bhagavad Gita describes that the living entity is this spiritual unit of consciousness who is the observer of the yantra rudani maya, the machine made of the material energy. The human intelligence and reasoning faculty, the mind and everything is purely material, and so it can be instantiated as an algorithm, and you can basically, where these materialists are going to end up is they're going to end up at we can basically replace everything about because you could replace all of the physical parts of the body with cybernetic, robotic hands and stuff like that. And then it turns out you can replace the entire mind as well. So then they're going to be we don't need these human beings. And the Vedic position is, the human being is actually a vehicle for the jiva to attain self-realization through. But if you take that aspect of it out, that the humans actually have no utility. So
and what does Arjuna say?
What does he say?
I don't know. I'm asking you. How do you differ from his view?
From Arjuna, yeah, he says no. There's some kind of spiritual component to the human mind. What about
really?
feelings and emotions? Feelings and emotions. You can make ChatGPT pretend to have feelings and emotions. If you do, I don't know if you've used ChatGPT with the voice interface, but when it talks, it's I think that's a really good idea. And it puts all this kind of inflections in there to make it sound like it's human, you know, like emotion. So it can
Yeah, yeah.
simulate emotion.
And Arjuna is saying that there's something intrinsically transcendent or spiritual about the material mind.
That's my take on the difference between us. Yeah, that there's like weirder feelings and love and emotions and yeah, but I take the position that since the material body and the mind is part of the material body and it's made out of the material energy, then they can build a complete facsimile of it. And that's what he's saying here is the utility of like driving the car, examining medical imagery, flying planes. You can get the machines, the artificial intelligences to do that stuff. So where these guys are going to end up is they're going to end up with like, well, why do we have all these useless humans around anyway, you know? Causing problems and using up resources.
Yeah, and therefore they end up in cocoons of like Matrix, and somehow we use them for creative stuff, or AI uses them for creative stuff. I don't know. It's a pretty doomsday, pretty bleak view.
Prospect.
Or prospect.
Yeah. The Matrix was a documentary, that famous meme.
Oh, wow. The Matrix was a documentary. Whoa. I love that. I'm going to look that up right now. The Matrix with the documentary.
We might even be in it right now, you know? How would we know? Like Inception.
Okay, continue.
Okay, here we
We're
go.
going to have this feeling of bewilderment where it's moving very fast. We can't keep up. How do we stop ourselves from falling into anarchy? Now, when that happens, we say, what games we play as a species? What do we do? And that's what I'm saying. It's time to rally around this don't die concept. Don't die individually. Don't kill each other. Don't kill the planet, and align AI with don't die. That our singular objective as a species, even though this sounds unimaginable right now, like from our vantage point, that's no way, impossible. You just look at the underlying characteristics of how this is progressing. To me, it feels inevitable over some time frame. Is it 2 years, 10 years, 20, 50? I don't know, but it's basically now.
I mean, there's no question you're right. If the Industrial Revolution, the steam-powered loom in England, gave rise to Marxism in the First and Second World Wars, and Vietnam, Korea, and every other conflict for 100 years, and the deaths of hundreds of millions of people, you know, technological change causes displacement, the fall of religions, the fall of empires, the murder of millions. So what will AI do?
Exactly right.
I couldn't agree more. I just wonder, like, what does it mean to be a human being if you have no autonomy? I'm an adult man. What does that mean? It's not just a measure of my age. It's a measure of my ability to make decisions about what I want to do and what I think and how I live and how my family lives. And so without that, what is the point of living?
Yeah.
In other words, I said I don't want to be bossed around by a machine, which is a pretty shallow answer.
But I understand.
I didn't explain it because I don't fully understand it,
Yeah.
how I feel about it. But something in my dog sense, my gut level tells me I don't want to live that life. I'd rather be dead.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I absolutely empathize with your reaction. And so the thought experiment is to provoke that exact emotion. It's meant to say, I hate this idea, and here's all the reasons why.
Yes.
And then once you get those on the table, you can then have some kind of detachment and say, why do I think those things? Like, what is this concept of me making decisions? Like, let's just break that apart. And that's why it takes 2.5 hours to get through. You need to hear other people.
This guy's a Gyani. He's like examining the structures of his thinking. It's a real netty kind of approach. He's gone,
Perspective.
I agree.
People need to say, I hate it. Some people say, I love it. And be like, but hold tight. Like, here's an example that you do already that challenges your notion on this ability to make decisions. You know, oh, damn, good point. So it really takes time to work through your own beliefs and understandings, because oftentimes it's just packed so deep, you can't get through it. And we give each thought 5 seconds in our modern society.
Yes.
We can't get deep. And so I understand your reaction. And Tucker, if you come to the dinner, I promise you'll leave with a changed understanding of existence. If this is not an easy topic, it really takes time to cycle through it, to be open-minded, to hear other people. But everyone gets there. Like, every single time, everyone gets there.
What do you serve? Is it all broccoli?
I do serve blueprint food. Yeah. So it's the 2 dishes I told you about.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting in and out before I come, but whatever. That's just me. So I said, when you asked, like, would I be willing to follow the instructions of the algorithm? And I wrote it out without thinking about it. No.
Yeah.
And then I admitted, in the interest of honesty, that I don't really have any reasons for saying no, other than my animal sense tells me, no, that's slavery. You can't live like that. You'd rather be dead, which is how I feel. That was my instinct speaking, which I regard as a kind of co-equal with my rational sense. Right?
Yes.
I don't think it's just like some dumb impulse.
Yes.
I think it's worth paying attention to. Do you feel that way? Do you have instincts? Do you follow them? Do you attach meaning to them?
I do. Every time I engage in a thought, I observe the first 4 to 5 thoughts my brain has as incorrect.
Interesting.
They're usually almost always wrong. And it's like there's a bias attached to this one. This one's coming out from a preconceived notion. This one has like some self-interest. And so I'm constantly trying to be aware of what's wrecking my ability to see things clearly at all points of time. And so I learned this. I was chronically depressed for a decade.
A decade?
A decade.
The decade that you were succeeding in business?
Yeah. That's right. I was building a startup. I had 3 little babies. I was trying to leave my religion. I was in a challenging relationship. So it just all packed into a tight. Yeah. In fact, when I was overeating every night to try to soothe my own.
What were you eating, by the way?
Well, we always had some sweets in the house. My partner had a sweet tooth. And so it was always, brownies or cookies or leftover cake so it was always like, just one bite and then led to a second bite. And then tomorrow we'll work out really hard and work off all the calories.
Did that work?
It didn't. I failed every single night. And the only thing that gave me liberation is one night I was just desperate. I mean, I was so miserable. I hated myself. I felt so ashamed that I couldn't stop this terrible behavior. I said, "Evening, Bryan, you're fired. You make my life miserable," because in the morning I would work out. I would eat a really great breakfast. All day I'd be disciplined. Great. And then nighttime would come. I would bathe the kids, get them to bed, tell them stories. And then that moment would come, like the brownies, just one bite of the brownies.
This
because
is like the Mormon version. You know what I mean? You're not like going to the crack house.
Oh, that's funny.
You have a whole stable of hookers.
Yeah.
You're eating the brownies.
Yeah. And so I basically created a character of myself. And so I would say, all right, when I saw Evening Bryan pull up and he'd give me all these really compelling reasons, like tonight's the last night, like tomorrow morning we work out extra hard. And I'd say, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So I fired him. So 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., I removed my ability to eat. He's like, no matter what, it doesn't matter what the occasion is, you cannot eat food. And so I started playing with my different characters of Bryan, like Dad Bryan, Work Bryan, Evening Bryan. And I found it really liberating that I'm not the behavior. I'm not the actual practice. And so this is when I started doing Blueprint as well. Like, could I construct an algorithm that actually improved me? Because I spent all day building technology in my company, Braintree Venmo. You would write the code in the technology and improve it. And then you would improve it again and again, version 2, version 3, version 4. So all day, my technology got better. And every day, I got worse. And I couldn't fix my own problems. And it was such a weird juxtaposition where technology is improving radically and I'm getting worse. So it's like this difference. And I thought, this is wild that as a species, we're so focused on the improvement of technology, and we are the self-destructive species in every regard. It's like, what is happening?
Well, that's the question. That's the unanswered, the question that remains unanswered. And of course, every religion answers it very neatly and sensibly, I would say, and every religion always has. And it does strike me, if you're looking back into history, that this is the only period post-war, post-World War II, where you've had a society at scale that assumes that there's nothing beyond itself. And so that raises a lot of questions. But the first is, like, why did every previous generation assume there was a God, but we don't? Like, were they all insane? Like, where did that come from?
If someone believes in God or not, or an afterlife or not, that's great. Like, I personally think everyone come together on this. We already agree on don't die, all of us do. So whether we have a story about what happens in the afterlife, it doesn't really matter. What we do agree upon right now is none of us want to die right now, not in this moment. So let's build upon what we agree upon in this very second.
No, I don't know that we do agree, actually, because there's no meaning without a power beyond ourselves, is there? I mean, there's only this sort of like shallow, silly, or sets meaning that we attach to various things like sex or living longer or feeling good or whatever, but there's no meaning beyond our physical momentary experience, whereas a person who acknowledges a power beyond himself attaches ultimate.
I think that's a powerful point.
Yeah.
I had mischaracterized this guy as live forever, but the way he's describing it, it's just like we can all agree that right in this moment now, which is the only moment that actually exists, we all are driven by a desire, don't die right now. And 2 things about that. One is that the Bhagavad Gita, the scenario there focuses in on that in a very crucial kind of way, in that Arjuna is, I don't want to die and I don't want my family members to die. And then what Krishna does is he reorients him in the present moment so that don't die no longer becomes like his overriding consideration, which is pretty much an overriding consideration for all animals, and only a human could become, in quotes, a religious fanatic ready to die on the battlefield and kill other people, which, a lot of people today would say is like the problem with religion. Whereas Bhagavad Gita is actually shows how, like he said, we can both agree that we don't want to die. And then Tucker says, I don't know if I can agree to that. And Arjuna at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita would be, I do agree with that. And at the end of Bhagavad Gita is, I don't agree with that. Like, not dying is not the overriding kind of priority in life. Got any thoughts on that, Chandra?
I just liked how, or disliked how or the way he said, well, whether we believe in God or not, whether we believe in God or not is irrelevant because we all share the common desire to not die now and stuff. To me, that's not to imply that I have any type of deep attachment to Krishna or that I'm experiencing any type of rasa with him. Maybe like a microscopic little drop. But when someone says like, it doesn't mean like whether you believe in God or not doesn't matter. It doesn't. Well, it shows someone who doesn't value what we believe has great value, namely the experience of a relationship, a two-way relationship between the soul and God and the soul. That excuse me, that bhakti rasa, as Prabhupada describes it in the Nectar of Devotion, the bhakti rasa, which again I have very little experience of, but which our acharyas say gives wonderful joy and all sorts of transcendental emotions or rasas to the self. He has no access to that, and therefore for him, like, hey, doesn't matter if you don't believe in God. Well, it does if knowing God, if God exists, and if knowing God results in wonderful experiences of all types of infinite varieties of relationships with God and exchanges of love, then you sure are missing out, buddy.
Totally. It's void. It's a sense of void that is trying to fulfill with what he's trying to accomplish, right? Let's not
Voidism.
die. Yeah, it's voidism. And as you said, if there is no rasa, there is no point. So what else you gonna find to fulfill that emptiness, right? And in the case of Tucker Carlson, he's like, you know what? I know that is what did he say?
Supernatural.
There is a supernatural force that he understands him as God, and he feels fulfilled, and that he has meaning in life to live, and he feels fulfilled because God exists in his life. So that you see, the rasa is completely different for him.
You know, the other thing this reminds me of is at the moment it's voidism. It's a form of voidism, and he's able to occupy himself with this. Imagine if he succeeded in this. So he succeeded in it, and then suddenly the quest to avoid death is no longer a focus, or it provides nothing for him now. Now what? You know who he would be then? You know who he would be in the Bhagavatam? The four Kumaras.
He would start his Jnani journey, huh?
He would be the ever youthful, impersonalist sages.
Right, he would
who then become attracted by the scent of the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord and end up in Vaikuntha.
We would hope, yeah. Nice one.
He has future though.
As long as he doesn't get hit by a truck while he's engaged in this. Yeah.
Moral meaning to events, right? So like you have no God, no meaning, or am I missing something? It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I try to speak in the world that I can operate practically. And so your thought of meaning is a biochemical process in your brain. It's a thought you have. It's a biochemical state you experience, whether it's love or whether it's meaning making or whether it's belief in death. You're experiencing this thing as a human. We can engineer this with predictability. We can engineer atoms and molecules and organisms. We can do this in the form of creating drugs today. We do this in the way of creating various medicines. We do this in creating implants. Like, we're getting increasingly good at doing this. And so much of our reality is going to become increasingly engineered. So
I know.
And so we're heading down this path where our digital reality, our physical reality, all realities, now we have the source code to do this. And this is why I'm saying that if you take any preconceived notion about being human, any ideas we have about reality, they're a representation of what we've been doing for thousands of years. Some of that may carry over, but maybe not. And so I'm inviting the conversation to say, this moment is not like the previous moments. Right. Very, very different.
But here's the practical, and I just want to restate.
Here's something for you, Chandra. Notice that this guy here, he's not coming from any religious perspective, and yet he's creating an eschatological showdown between, and he presented it purely, it's a purely materialistic, mechanistic view of reality and the human being. And he's saying we're arriving at a point where we have like an unprecedented, ability in an unprecedented moment. Doesn't that sound like Armageddon?
Yeah, or perhaps the point where also man becomes God, right? Well, through transhumanism, you have this theme that comes up again. It's like, okay, you don't try to become God, but you become omniscient, like yeah, you become omniscient through data because somehow you tap into, the what is it, the internet of bodies.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But it's not even you who does it. I mean, this will probably come out in a moment with him. They're positing that there's going to be some super intelligent AI that does it. So they're basically, their idea is they're creating God.
Yeah. The other thing he talks about, this is our reality. When reality of, he doesn't distinguish what is actually reality, because we know we live in an illusion. Everything right now is an illusion. The reality is there is a higher powers, and there is a spiritual realm where we don't die. We are associated with God or Krishna, ever youthful, ever beautiful, ever blissful. And he thinks his reality now, where he is living in this Mother Earth, with his mind, is the reality for him.
It's what he's doing is he's trying to become immortal in the material world, and he's trying to instantiate Krishna, the omniscient, super intelligence in the material world. Basically, he's just replaced going to the spiritual world with making this into effectively the spiritual world.
he's a Jehovah's Witness. No, I'm kidding.
Really honest. Open-minded. So this is in no way a slight, but the core problem, however, is that in a moment of technological change, really revolution, unimaginable, everything you said sounds right to me, you need a framework by which, or with the help of which, you make important practical decisions. We call them moral decisions.
Yes.
So if there's no acknowledged power beyond people, or only the power that we create through these machines and their giant data centers, then how can we say, well, if I feel like killing you, because it pleases me,
right?
How can we oppose that? How can we say that's wrong? We can't actually say that's wrong. We can say it's inconvenient, or it's, detracts from GDP, or it's unhelpful, but we can't say it's wrong.
Yeah.
How could we?
Yep.
Right?
I agree. So we've settled many of these questions today. Like, if you want to kill somebody and you actually do it, there's consequences.
But why?
It's the way we resolve the moral and ethical questions in our society.
On what basis?
Agreed. But we've solved it somehow.
We haven't solved it. We just, like, the government has said you can't kill people.
Right.
But by your own description, governments are going away. Clearly they are. I don't even think they really exist now. What are countries? It's meaningless, right?
I agree.
So like some dude in a faraway city says I can't do that. Well, says who?
Yeah. So
it doesn't have any meaning at all, except to the extent you can punish me because you feel like it. But there's no way to say it is wrong or right in an absolute sense. There's no way to say anything is wrong or right in an absolute sense.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. What you're saying is, what I'm hearing you say is the technological revolution or disruption opens up the space for these questions to be asked anew, even though we don't even know where it came from in the beginning.
No, what I'm saying is we're going to have a lot more questions, practical questions about how to proceed that need to be answered now.
Yes.
And without any authority above ourselves, on what basis are we going to answer those questions?
I see. Okay. This is what I am proposing, is that just like when America was founded,
yes,
it was this concept of, hey, the monarchy has been doing its thing for quite some time. Not great. We think we can do this really new, weird thing of democracy and vote people in. We have these two representative bodies, and half the people thought that's insane. Half the body's like, kind of cool, let's try it. So we chose democracy as a form of governance that was supposedly better than the monarch. And so in that moment, we chose a new form of governance in trying to do that. Now, we've been trying to solve the thorny questions of democracy for over 200 years. In fact, we fight about it every single day.
Right.
But it's still this basic idea that democracy was superior to monarchy. And what I'm suggesting right now is we are walking into a new phase of existence where we have to answer these questions anew. And we don't know what the answer is, but the foundational observation is don't die. So don't die individually, don't kill each other, don't kill the planet, align AI with don't die. After that, we're going to spend the next unknown period of time fighting about what it means to don't die. But as a species, if you birth artificial intelligence, what do you use it for? Is it to become better at war? Do you become better at killing?
Oh, I couldn't agree with your conclusions more. I mean, I strongly agree with them. I'm just wondering about the basis upon which you reach them. And so without God, how can we say, and why would we say, that life is better than death? I mean, the religious person, the Christian, says life is better than death because God creates life, and only He can. And by the way, that's still true. We could, for all the tinkering we do to life, we can't create it. There's no evidence we'll ever be able to create it. So that might be a tell that we're not God right there. In my view,
yeah, he's bringing up the age-old issue of can there be morality and ethics without God? I remember I had a friend in high school that she was actually the daughter of the headmaster at Crossroads High School in Santa Monica, and we used to debate that point, even though I hadn't come to Krishna consciousness and I wasn't a practicing Catholic at all. Somehow it just sat wrong with me, just the idea that there can be ethics and morality innate, and as you said, Prabhu, in an absolutely relative world, right, where there's absolutely no epistemological absolute or foundation. So I think Tucker makes a good point here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Tucker is pointing to here is that the logical conclusion of what Bryan Johnson is presenting, which is this postmodern kind of like he stated it. The only reason why these things exist and we've solved them is because we created these laws. Is that in the future that he's proposing, unanchored from any scriptures, any God, any sanctity of life, any recognition of the spiritual nature of the humans or any other life forms, you're going to end up with like, yeah, we should just like dispose of all of these temporary, as Prabhupada says in the beginning of the Gita, like if life is just a bag of chemicals, nobody laments when you pour a bunch of chemicals down the drain. So unfortunately, Bryan's grounding leads to that world. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Tucker's pointing to. He's not coming out and saying it, but that's what he's pointing to.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate thing. Like, okay, so, we just make meaning out of anything. It's like, all right, then if you are a person that doesn't, and I believe you don't have any meaning and your life doesn't mean anything, then I can kill you right now.
And the only thing stopping you is the laws. And so laws. All you need to do is change the laws now. And then
exactly. And then the guy is saying, well, we've been before in this way. Now we are in this way. We're progressing fast. And it's like, okay, we can progress fast for sure. Does that mean in the thinking pattern of this person in 100 years time, they will be eating each other, killing each other? Then what is the point of living or dying? You will die anyway. So what a situation of fear is this? Because he doesn't want to die in that moment. And nobody wants to die for sure. We want to live forever.
I think his motivations are good, but the implications of unpegging yourself from Shastra are disastrous for humans and human civilization.
Yeah, but when there is no God in the center and he doesn't have the understanding, the supreme authority is God himself, and you're trying to play the card of God in this Mother Earth, you're taking like the suicide pathway.
But we still can't create it, and there's no evidence we'll ever be able to. So the Christian looks at this and says, life is better than death because life is God's creation. But why would the atheist accept that as true? On what basis? Life is better because I've got an awesome life. Some person might say I've got a shitty life. Like death is better. Like I don't understand. There's no common agreement that there's a force beyond ourselves. Why we would reach that conclusion?
Yeah, or maybe reframed. It's a person's option to life that they can choose whether they want to have that or not. Whereas right now, death is inevitable. We don't get to choose. We don't get to choose disease or death.
Right. Okay.
So it's the option to. So in many ways, I'm currently working to create a don't die nation state. So if you're serious about not dying, and this again, not for immortality, but just for the purpose of we're at the dawn of a new era as a species, and we're going to try to create some stable structure for birthing superintelligence.
Yes.
Then you can walk into that, and no government in the world is helping its citizens not die. Really basic things like blood draws and therapies and medical care. It's very much treat the symptoms when they arise, or when you're near end of life, let's keep you alive for some short duration time. But otherwise, we don't do a good job. And so I'm trying to figure out how to create a new societal structure that has the sole objective, a nation state, of helping its citizens not die.
Of course, the first order of business would be to construct a military to defend yourselves against people who want to kill you anyway. Because not everyone agrees. You should get to live, of course. But
oh, good.
Yeah. So but let me ask you, like, maybe there's a shortcut to all this. And I so admire your energy and your willingness to think about questions that most people don't bother to think about, but can feel are important. Everything you said, I can feel it's important. Like, this is not nonsense what you're saying at all. But why wouldn't it just be a lot easier to blow up all the processing centers, save ourselves like the massive climate change inducing energy draw that AI really is? If we're worried about the planet, we got to stop this crap immediately because we can't generate power for it, and arrest everyone who's getting rich, imposing this revolution on the world. Like, that's a lot easier. You could do that in an afternoon with nuclear weapons. And why wouldn't you if you thought it would help us, quote, not die?
I mean, the systems we have as a society today enables those things. Like the ability to create a corporation, to make money, to use that money to acquire more power. These are systems that humans have created. It's how the world works.
Sure.
And
so was Auschwitz. I mean, so
what I'm saying is that AI is going to improve at a speed that's going to challenge how these structures are.
I couldn't agree more.
And when that happens, there's going to be an opening. There's going to be a power vacuum, and it's not going to be very clear anymore who's in charge.
Yes.
Who has authority? Who can verify identity? Where can you keep money? Is money secure?
Yes.
All these basic questions of society. And so what I'm suggesting is, as a species, we increase our probability of surviving if we can rally around one thing that we can all agree upon. Now, they don't die. If we disagree, what?
You know what he's describing here about like the money and the everything that's changing? To me, Prabhupada spoke to these problems and he gave these solutions that in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, when you were reading the Bhagavatam and hearing Prabhupada talk, you're like, this sounds so radical. This is never going to happen, agrarian communities, going back to like gold as money, it was like revolutionary. But now people just like across the spectrum are starting to say like, we're about to enter a moment where everything is up for grabs. And I look at it and I just go like, Prabhupada's given a complete program. This guy's like, I'm coming up with a program. I'm like, well, we happen to have one right here. That Prabhupada said the golden age is coming and this is what it's going to look like. Go back to gold, local production, varnashram, dharma as the, socio-political structure, monarchy, brahmanas from Shastra advising Kshatriyas using military force to protect the nation state, ruling on the basis of Shastra. I mean, to me, it sounds like these guys are describing, the Armageddon kind of moment. You got any thoughts on that, Chandra?
Yeah, the alternative of grow your own food and so on, as you mentioned actually in the title of this podcast, is an important component of, or kind of like piece of the puzzle in the whole discussion.
Yeah, it's kind of like some devotees that they're like, oh, this is never going to happen, we're never going to do this. But it looks to me as if society is about to implode, like all the social structures, everything, that we've relied on, governments, who we trust, who people trust. It's like Krishna is organized things to demolish the existing world order. And then, there is some kind of new world order coming. And what's it going to be? Yeah, that's just what I'm hearing this guy creating here.
One layer above, great.
Wait, I get it. I totally get it. But, and I hate to like reduce everything to if you could kill baby Hitler, would you? But it is sort of a question like that because like you would not disagree if I said, here's what we know. We know that AI is likely to spawn some improvements, also certain to kill millions of people. Millions will die because of this. There's no doubt about it. The chaos alone, right, will cause that. I bet my house on that. That's going to happen. Why let that happen? Why not just strangle this puppy in the crib? Like seriously, why wouldn't you as a rich guy fund a bunch of saboteurs to blow up the data centers and to take out the people pushing this crap and to try and end it? Go full Unabomber. Like honestly, why couldn't you justify that?
It would be a question, what path do you think creates a higher probability of survival? Do we think that technology, or do we think we humans are a better path? I mean, for example, I look at my own self-destructive behaviors and not trusting myself. Do we really think that we humans are trustworthy to chart a path where we survive ourselves?
I don't know. I mean, it's of course hard to know, potentially not, for sure. And I definitely don't trust myself, as noted. But I have a soul and a machine doesn't. And so that gives me kind of an advantage, I would say a moral advantage over the machine.
Wow, that was nice, huh? I have a soul, but a machine doesn't. That's the whole crux of our argument against transhumanism and physicalism, especially.
And Bryan is advocating for the rule of the machine. He's basically saying humans can't be trusted, so we need the super intelligent AI to run everything.
Right.
That's what these guys are trying to bring in. The rule of the soulless machine.
Yeah, and trust them more. Like there's this scene in Ready Player One. No, in the other movie called Alita. Came out maybe 4 or 5 years. Yeah, Alita. It's
anime.
And yeah, half. And I don't know if no, it's definitely some human actors.
Okay,
but he falls in love with this girl who's fully robot. Like she's like her with the same, because like where is the personality of the robot situated? Well, it's in the brain, right? Well, actually, in Alita 2, it's so funny, because you have this symbolism of a woman giving her heart to her her husband. We would hope, So there's this scene in Alita 2 where she's a robot, like fully programmed, right? And he's in need of money, but she has this great technology. Like she's made of this very advanced and expensive technology. And she's like, well, how much money do you need? And he's like, 90 grand. And she's like, well, here, take my heart. And so like she literally with her robotic arm, like reaches into like the image of Hanuman who opens his chest and there's Sita Ram. So similarly,
Yes.
like her chest opens and she reaches out and she holds a totally mechanical heart. And she's like, well, here, I'm giving it to you. Sell it, so you can make money. But anyway, so and the whole premise of this movie, whether it's 1 or 2, is that just like you're saying, and this guy is saying, we can trust AI, we can trust robots, we can trust matter really more than humans or sentient individuals. And there's this dialogue where this romantic so-called moment where she asks him, well, don't you like, aren't you disappointed? Doesn't it bother you that I'm not like fully human? And then he replies, and this is key, I think. He says, you're more human than any human I know. So I think that kind of connects to what this guy is saying here. Like, yeah, well, we can trust robots more. We can trust AI more than other sentient beings. It's crazy.
Apparently, AI
and
girlfriend
tag on them
is
tag on them the title of human, or better than human. It sucks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Than my iPad would be.
Yeah.
Because I have a soul and the iPad doesn't. And so, but again, but that's a theological distinction, but it's a practical matter. Like, there's no way you can look into the camera and say AI is not likely to kill millions of people, because you know that it is. The effect of it will kill people for sure. The displacement that you described, the power vacuum you described, the chaos that you described correctly, you're predicting. That's all that's real, in my view. So millions will die because of that. So why wouldn't you just take your money and try to blow it up in the name of saving millions?
I think the probabilities of our survival are higher with AI.
Oh, even though millions will die.
I don't accept the premise.
You don't? You really don't?
I really don't. Millions are dying because of the food industry.
Yeah.
Millions are dying because of environmental toxins. Millions are dying because of, certainly death is happening at a societal scale for a lot of things that we humans are doing. Now, sometimes it's not born of malice. Like, we're just trying to improve.
I agree. I totally agree with everything you just said. That's all true.
Yeah. But I think this is back to your statement, Dr.
So you actually think AI, so I think I misread what you were saying. I thought you were saying this historically transformative thing is about to happen and we've got to prepare ourselves for it. And the implication would be that's a kind of bad and scary thing. But you're saying actually for all the displacement and suffering it's going to cause, it's still better than if we didn't have it.
Exactly. And I'm saying that when I listen to what the world is saying, so we're giving birth to the superintelligence, what do we do?
It's so seductive. I'm just like, wow, you know what? He's probably right. If an AI was, and I can see them doing it. Like in this country, in New Zealand, they've started these things called social supermarkets. And they're for people who are dealing with the cost of living crisis. And you go to the supermarket and, you talk to a person there and they give you a certain number of points that you can spend in the supermarket. And you can go around and, you can only get what the points are. So what they're doing there, conspiracy tinfoil hat on, but it doesn't even take much these days, is they're preparing these supermarkets so that you can do shopping there based on your social credit and your carbon credit, and things like the AI algorithm will tell you what foods you can and can't buy based on, like health considerations. And that just sounds so logical and reasonable, right? It's like, yeah, you make bad health decisions, so you just like set the system up so that people can't do that, and that the AI knows what they should be buying and makes them to buy that. It makes so much sense, right? Like, bring it on.
But the one thing that this person is not aware, that's my opinion, he's saying the AI will will be better off for human beings.
Yeah.
Is someone, is someone or something you can trust rather than trusting the human beings themselves. He's not aware of like human beings that are building or making a life miserable for all the human beings. Is just a little amount or a bunch of them that is trying to conquer the world. Therefore, they are making the world kind of like a miserable of what already is miserable. He's not aware that they are rakshasas. He's not aware there are victims who are the naive or innocent people. He's not aware of that.
That's Prabhupada's framing, right? The suras and the asuras, and then the general mass of humanity follows whoever's ascendant and in power, and at the moment it's the asuras. He's not aware of that framing. He frames it as human beings are imperfect, and so therefore let's put these machines in control of absolutely everything and give them more control down to the level of individual human behaviors.
Yeah.
inside his framing of the world, it makes complete sense. But you put that inside Prabhupada's framing, and what you're looking at is asuras trying to establish complete dominance over everyone down to the individual level.
And the other thing he is, although he is a Mormon,
Was
a Mormon,
he's an agnostic now.
agnostic, yeah. It's like you see the level of envy, because the Rakshasas are very envious of God himself, of the creation and, you know, his extended love. They are taking it as a sense of like we can control, we can dominate, we can lord over all of these human beings. That is the envy of the Rakshasas. By the way he is thinking, or the Asuras, by the way he is thinking, oh, we have to trust the AI, the humanities we cannot trust, and do all of that. He is not being, or he's not present. The way he's speaking is actually his envy towards God.
It doesn't.
Quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't say that, but you know, there's the subtle message is here. It's like, I trust more machines than actually the super soul who created this world. And in this material world, which is the Mother Earth, we have this amount of people that wants to actually become God, have control of everything, have the power of everything, dominate the population. He's not aware of that.
So the world is unreal, no one in control,
no one in
control,
control.
only
Yeah.
sex desire.
Yeah. So everyone is like, you know, killing themselves. They're not respecting themselves. Yeah, that is true to the extent some people don't respect themselves. They're just like, you know, like a whatever. They're just eating whatever they want to do.
The thing I wanted to point to with this was like when I first watched the video and I wrote this on Facebook, I said, after reading so much science fiction over so many decades, I find this seductive and exciting, you know, what he's presenting. But if I view it through the lens of Shastra Chakshus, it's like this guy is like the avatar of the Asuras promoting their particular agenda.
Yeah.
It gives me, I get a complete different view of what he's presenting.
And the thing is, remember what Srila Prabhupada says, people that know the Shastras, and they, I think they...
Oh, you were muted, Chandra.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to get a glass of water.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so people, they know the Shastras. They are the most dangerous people. He was in the Mormon where they have the scriptures and God was set in the center in there, right? Mm-hmm. But now he read all of that and then he just came out of it like, nah, I'm not going to go there. So this guy is way more dangerous.
Yeah, he's a lot of zeros. He's a lot of zeros. He's obviously highly trained. You heard his empathic communication. What I heard you saying is that he's not reactive. He's very reasoned and logical, but the grounding of it, and this is what Tucker's pointing to, his reason is grounded in a postmodern absolute relativity view, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter as they say the world is unreal with no one in control.
Mm-hmm.
That's the postmodern view. And then so you basically just create whatever you want in that. Like, and so it's kind of like from a Christian perspective, Satan is given this realm. So it's kind of like, oh, here we're gods and we will create our own God here and we can just do whatever we want with no reference to God.
Not even create their own God. They want to be God. This person himself says, we created God. That means he is God.
Someone will be running the AIs.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, let's keep rolling.
Argument I've heard.
Are you able to hear Chandra? Oh, wait till he gets back on. Okay, we're going to roll it.
I'm here.
Is universal basic income.
I got to go in 15 minutes.
It's not a solution. We have
That's the midwit solution.
Okay.
That's I'm running for president as the fake smart tech guy. Maybe we should have UBI. Okay.
We have no plan. We've given no thought.
I agree.
And we don't even know, we can't even fully comprehend how big of a problem this is and on what scale. And so what I'm trying to do is get out in front of this to say it's big, it's serious. And
wait a second, you're contradicting yourself, Bryan Johnson. You just said a minute ago you think it'll be an improvement over what we currently have.
Yes. Okay.
But then you're saying a sentence later that it's such a huge problem that we need to like mobilize all forces.
Bounce it to here. We'll get that last 5 minutes in so we can discuss that.
What would be nice is, right, words of encouragement and of softness and of inquiring how
Sure, but again, that's
oh yeah, this part
in his pocket in the form of an iPhone where all human information is available, and like people are way more ignorant than they were 30 years ago.
Trillions of times bigger than what we experience. And so if you say, what could our conscious experience be? What could existence be in a few decades? It may be orders of magnitude larger than what we have now. So I realize we come at this now with this fear response. We're saying we can pattern things that we've seen, but going forward, we may be cavemen and have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
maybe.
I mean,
Post data
where we are now,
check.
we don't have any idea what we're talking about. We can't anticipate the future. We're limited in our foresight and our knowledge, and particularly in our wisdom. Completely agree with all of that. But the idea that harnessing the computing power of machines will inform us to a greater degree ignores what just happened over the last 30 years, where everyone now has the Encyclopedia Britannica, which, as we used to call it, in his pocket in the form of an iPhone, where all human information is available. And like people are way more ignorant than they were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And moreover, any machine we create will never be able to answer the questions that actually matter, like why is my wife mad at me? Or how? No machine can ever determine that and with certainty, or even explain like how does life begin?
So,
right?
Well,
Can AI answer? Can AI tell me why my wife is mad at me?
Yes. I mean, you yeah,
come on.
You give it some time, and you're gonna get a readout of here's her hormone levels, here's her biochemical state, this is her sleep score, this is her diet, here's her exercise protocol. Tucker, given these variables, here's the best course of action.
That's the mechanistic answer. But
it translates to Tucker. What would be nice is words of encouragement and of softness and of inquiring how.
Sure, but again, I guess we're back to where we started, and I'll stop at this before I make reservations to come to your house for a broccoli dinner and have 5 existential crises before the dessert. There's no dessert, right?
There's no dessert.
I'll come anyway. But anyway, the point is, this ignores an entire universe, which may be the most important universe, which is the spiritual universe. And every civilization that left any trace of itself has believed in that universe.
Sure.
But for the last 80 years, we haven't, and we're proceeding into the future on the basis of no belief in that. And it seems like questions of right and wrong, of sin and virtue, of redemption, like all of this is totally missing. And that plays a role too. It's not just how much exercise you get, how many hours did you sleep, what you eat.
Sure.
Feelings are not just the result of biochemical processes. They're the result of forces that exist outside of us. No, spiritual forces, unseen forces.
I agree with you. And this may be the most spectacular spiritual existence in our history. This is absolutely, like, you and I have the same conscious experience of reality. We may have different ideas about reality, but we experience it in a very similar way. And what I'm suggesting is the promise of this time and point is we may be on the cusp of the most spectacular existence in this part of the galaxy. We don't know that intelligent life lives anywhere in the galaxy. We can't find it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We're the only life we can see. And we're now giving birth to super intelligence. This moment may be the time to set aside our petty little things and say, really, it's us in this moment? And we get to experience a spiritual nature that is just mind-boggling. This is our moment. Why would
is there any?
He's really mixing up what is matter and spirit, isn't it? Like his understanding of, like, he confuses physics and metaphysics, or the physical and the metaphysical, like nobody's business.
I am the body is his grounding.
Right. And from that, there's all sorts of misconceptions of what is spiritual.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no evidence, which I think is a fair thing to say.
He needs to read the Gita.
I respect your evidence-based standard, okay? Where's the evidence that technology has ever brought people closer together, has ever done anything but enable people to be people, which is to use it in part for good ends, better food, more food, and evil ends, nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think that there's any evidence for what you're saying.
Yeah, it's because humans have been playing the game die. So it's not that technology has virtue or is without virtue. Technology is neutral. Humans have used it for their purposes of war and power acquisition and wealth. It's what we've always been doing. And that's what I'm suggesting. That's what we need to eliminate from society, the causes of death. And that includes warfare. It includes fast food. It includes all the things we do to ourselves and to each other and the planet.
But until we can account for why we do it to ourselves, we're probably not going to change it. But I think the most obvious explanation is we're being acted on by demons, and this is how every religion I'm aware of has described it correctly, in my opinion, acted on by demons, whose goal is to destroy and kill people. And they're counterbalanced by God. But if you don't agree with that, then you need to substitute another explanation in its place in order to proceed in the hope that we can change. Otherwise, we're just in this cycle with more powerful technology that allows us to do the same evil things, but at a greater scale.
I mean, am I not a demon?
Wow.
Are you not a demon? You don't seem like one. My demon assessment abilities aren't great.
I mean, like, have we correctly labeled ourselves angels or the good guys and incorrectly labeled the demons the bad actors? Am I not the demon?
I don't know. I guess what I'm, it's all in the definition, but I guess the core observation remains the same, which is people are subject to forces outside of themselves, which are unseen. Not all of this is the product of sleep cycles or carbon take.
Or maybe it is.
I don't see any evidence for that because it's remained constant throughout all time that we're aware of. This pattern has never changed, and it's existed in times when people were getting massive amounts of aerobic exercise because they had to walk through the fields all day, when they were eating no carbs, when they were hunter-gatherers, or whatever. It's like, it's always been true. So, like, why?
What's your guess?
Well, my certainty is that we are being acted on by spiritual forces that we cannot see, that there is a war going on all around us, out of our sight, not perceived by our senses most of the time, between good and evil.
Yeah.
And that's hardly an original insight.
I'm with you. So
you're with me.
I'm with you. What I heard you say is there's more to reality than we can see.
Yes.
There's forces which we can't identify, and we should address those. We're on the same page after the same thing.
What are those forces?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what we need to figure out. That's the whole objective of this endeavor, is to identify what we cannot see and reconcile with and eliminate the forces that deteriorate our life experience. Well, in all this capacity, spiritual, physical, all of it. We're saying the same thing after the same.
It's going to take me a day to process that.
It does.
Bryan Johnson, I will see you at dinner.
Great.
Thank you for that conversation. I really appreciated it.
It's so crazy.
What a crazy ending, hey? The guy's like, am I a demon? Am I not a demon? It's like, yes, you are. According to the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you are the pure expression of the Asura. You know, his grounding is the world is unreal. There's no one in control.
Right.
And then it's basically whatever you make up, which is going to be some version of, you know, more wealth will be mine. And that's what Tucker's pointing to. He's like, and you know, that this is the eternal drivers of people throughout history. And unless you can account for that, like, how are you going to stop that happening with just more powerful technology and greater concentration of wealth and exploitation of the people?
Mm.
And the best this guy has
Hare
to offer
Krishna.
is machines are going to do a better job of it than humans. You know, the humans are the problem and the machines are the solution. That's
Right.
the essence of his presentation.
And it's funny because it just makes me think of this. There's this French. He's not that famous. He's a French sort of. He's younger than me, and I think even younger than you. Oh God, what's his name? He's a French, very right wing, intellectual, writer, political commentator, and like he really knows Nietzsche, you know, inside out. And he made a video. One of his last videos was very interesting, and because he made the point by quoting directly from these postmodernists that you mentioned, philosophers, and I'm just mentioning names, but I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot of their stuff, if at all, like Foucault, Derrida, and 2 or 3 other ones. And a couple of them actually committed suicide, right? And his very interesting and very scary point, which is being illustrated here by what this guy says when he says that, you know, we should trust machines more. What does it mean? It's basically a philosophy of suicide, a philosophy of self-destruction. And so his argument is that Western civilization, right, led by these idiotic so-called great philosophers who are all atheists and all, you know, I mean, at least in the bunch that he mentioned, like Foucault, Derrida, I forgot the other guys, are basically putting forth a philosophy of self-destruction where, you know, the goal of life, the end is individual and civilizational self-destruction. And so when, in a way, when you say that AI is better than humans, and when we say humans, we imply, you know, sentient jivas who are embodied in physical human bodies, you're basically saying that. You're basically saying, let's auto-destruct. What do you think?
It's the swallow the spider to catch a fly, right? It's rather than go back to have a look at your initial grounding, which is where Tucker kept trying to take him to. If you don't come from Shastra Praman and have Shastra Chakshas, you end up, you know, creating something that doesn't work, and then now they're going to double down on that, and they're giving you a post-dated check. It's like, hey, whatever we created on this basis didn't work to this point. But trust us that once we get these way more powerful and more control, then it will work. And he's like super buzzed about the whole thing. And Tucker's like, I'm afraid of this thing. And he even called it a fear response, you know? Like I can see, you know, devotees who align with this being like, oh, you know, you're just being afraid. I mean, Prabhupada's argument was anti-technological. He said, you know, before they had so many men were working with the oxen, then they made a tractor, then the men, you know, 6 men are out of work and they kill the cows. Like, and they call that progress. And now they're like, hey, let's like put a geolocating AI in a tractor and get rid of the one guy driving the tractor. It's like that if it's viewed through the lens of Prabhupada's view of the world, these guys are like going for like an end stage Asuric kind of takeover. If you view it from the perspective that Bryan's coming from, where it's like, you know, what, we don't really know anything, and it's just the mind and the senses and logic, reason, the ascending process, it sounds quite exciting. But from the other perspective, it sounds like it must be opposed with all means necessary.
Yeah.
Who's the guy? Can you remember his name? I'd like to
Trying
check him out. The
find
French
him.
guy.
Yeah. Here we go. His name is Julien. Julien Rochdy. A young guy. He's like, he can't be older than 30, but a brilliant speaker. And
how do I spell his last name?
I'll send you the link. It's
Okay.
ROCHEDY. ROCHEDY. And a video he made now 10 months ago called "The Philosophy of, the Deconstruction of Wokeism." And his conclusion is basically that, it's a philosophy of self-destruction. And we could say, taking a Tucker Carlson, Christian eschatology point of view, well, it's the devil, right? He says a few times it's demons or it's the devil who's pushing us to do it, which I guess we could also justify from the pages of the Bhagavatam. Or we could say, well, it's the influence of Kali, either Kali personified or just the symptom of this age that's pushing us in that direction. And so as devotees, we ourselves, like Dana Mataji said, right? We have to be aware of these demoniac forces and be very astute in which I think, in at least in my little limited view, translates in trying our best to follow the four regulative principles. Because Adharma or Kali, whether it's Lucifer himself or shows its or his face when we break the four regulative principles, because we're breaking Dharma. And that's when we let the influence of Kali come and influence us. So if we're trying our best to follow the four regs and we're performing the Yuga Dharma, then we can, then we're kind of safe, right? Hopefully.
I was reading the a warning walk from 1973, Srila Prabhupada in Melbourne, I think, and he was. What I got from what he was saying there is his point in following the four regulative principles is that it gives you more potency and power to execute on what you're doing. So, I mean, this guy is following, he sounds like he's following the four regulative principles.
Interesting, yeah, because he's not even eating meat, and he doesn't drink, right? So he probably doesn't smoke.
He's celibate. He goes to bed at 7 o'clock every night. So he's like, well, maybe he's not. Maybe he does something during the day, but regardless of that. Yeah, it's kind of like there's Tucker calls it unseen forces. We might think of it as the influence of the three modes of material nature, and then the divine and demoniac natures as well. The confluence of those things together. Someone who is asuric, following four regulative principles, performing austerity and operating in the mode of goodness is going to be like really powerful, and that's kind of what this guy looks like to me.
Yeah.
His way of thinking is like his way of formulating his thought process and elaborating is very convincing. Now,
he's a powerful preacher.
Yeah. Now, if you don't have the knowledge of the Shastras, which is the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will fall for it easily, especially these young people that are indoctrinated to the bone with all of this materialistic lifestyle and identification with the body. They will fall prey easily to that. And the Kali is not something like, hey, it's me, and I am representing or I'm giving the authority to follow this and that. He's very subtle, and I think he says in one of the, I think it's in the scriptures itself, Kali will represent, isn't it like the three things, like quarrel, what was the other thing? This age of Kali is quarreling. What is the other thing?
Sure. I'm supposed to come through with this one? I don't know.
What does the age of Kali mean?
It's the quarrel and dissent.
Hypocrisy?
Deceit, hypocrisy, deceit. Deceived? Yeah.
Deceit, yeah.
Deceit. Those are very subtle. very subtle. It comes in the behavior of people. It comes in the way you are tempted and you follow. You don't have people that doesn't have values. They just go whatever, and that person becomes an instrument. And if they continue follow the, that lifestyle, they're not happy with themselves, and they create a lot of chaos in their lives of the people they live in their society or whatever. So we need to be aware how exactly is personified that. What is the behavior of that kind of people? What is the aim of that kind of Kali? I mean, the behavior of the Kali in this time, in the, I don't know, these years in Kali Yuga time. And being able to elaborate that in a way people are like, okay, I'm more present to exactly what it means. So people will start checking on themselves. That's my view. Yeah.
Now, I know you have to go. You got a hard stop here, Chandra. So maybe let's go to closing thoughts. You're on mute still.
I'm sorry, I said sure. Closing thoughts after you, or if you want me to say something. I don't know what to say in terms of closing thoughts. I think we've encapsulated, summarized, and made a nice Vaishnava critique of this video quite well.
Yes, let's go into the historical record. Yeah, we'll get it out there. And I want to congratulate you and acknowledge you for the work that you're doing with your YouTube channel. And it was that transhumanism video that really, it was two things really. It was the presentation that you did on Narada's podcast, which was great, just amazing, well reasoned and laid out. When I look at Bryan Johnson doing his presentation on the whole thing, I was like, okay, well, Chandra's our guy like that. He's going to give this like well-reasoned, non-reactive kind of presentation about something. And then the transhumanism one, which is like on the money, it's the current moment, and the production values are like amazing. I don't know what kind of camera you're using to shoot that thing on, but it looks great. And the composition, the whole thing, super engaging, 9-minute, 40-second video or something like that. We'll put a link to it in the comments so people can watch it. And keep on keeping on.
Thank you, because dandavas.com isn't publishing it, so thank you.
Really? They don't want to publish that?
Yeah.
Anyway, they're taking money from the United Nations these days.
Yeah, I think we have to be quite aware and also prepared to present our views that contradicts what they are imposing into humanity. And this is because we know we have the scriptures, we know exactly how it ends, what is happening. So why not use that? We don't have to recreate anything. Yeah, exactly. So you have the intelligence. Yeah, you have the intelligence given by Krishna, and you have all the script. Hey, why don't you just use it? You don't have to create or do anything or invent anything. Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And if Thunderbuds won't publish it, we'll just have to get it out there on the underground. I mean, that's pretty much an endorsement in 2024. If Thunderbuds won't publish it, you're on the money. You're over the target. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Did they give any feedback to you about why they wouldn't publish it?
I wrote to them saying, why? What's wrong? Come on. But maybe, I don't know. So let's see. Maybe they'll publish it. But thank you for your encouragement and your good wishes and prayers and blessings. So thanks for everyone thanks for having me on your show. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on.
Really interesting.
And I'll go off and watch some of this Julian Rojadi.
Yeah.
I got his name right.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Jai Haribol. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So, let's just go through some of these comments here. Achyutananda, who contributed the Bhagavad Gita 16 to 13. I'm the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There's none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance.
Remember what I said? His guy has these qualities: more of goodness and what he's, more of passion, his determination to get to something, more of ignorance, that is the result where he's gonna get like.
Here's some.
It's Bhagavad Gita 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's some comments from Roy Ramananda Das. He says the conceptualization of Vedic concepts or overlapping them into present-day scientific tools is not at all intelligence. We have to understand that. For example, you said about Yayati Maharaj. We should not draw parallels like this. Vedic incidents happen on metaphysical level, mantra shakti, not through some plasma operation supplement intake.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Roy Ramananda might have missed something here, though. Kaya Kalpa Vidya is described in Atharva Veda and Ayurvedic texts like Ashtanga, Hridaya, Bhagbata, Nirgantu, etc. It's all mantras and combinations of rare herbs one has to achieve siddhi in that. Yeah, my point in making that comparison is not, it's not like the technologies or anything. It's about the archetypal themes. Like the stories that happen in the Bhagavatam illustrate eternal truths, timeless truths about human nature.
Yeah.
And so the story of Yayati is, regardless of the method by which Yayati's son's youth was transferred to him, the point that's being made there is that there's this desire among human beings to rob the youth of their youth, of their life force, in order for them to live on by whatever means they do that, but whether it's through mantra or through plasma infusion or whatever. So when they say that, there are people who are like taking life force from young children, it's like, yeah, that's a timeless human activity. That's a thing that happens. When the opportunity is there for it to happen, as the story of Maharaj Yayati demonstrates, people will do that. He did that. And it's inappropriate because anyway, he just had the desire to continue enjoying, and so he took that from his son.
Yeah, that's unfortunate thing, the motivation and the aim.
Yeah. It's a thing. It happens.
Yeah. And the thing here, this is nothing new though, because everything is in the scriptures.
Exactly. And then so Roy Ramananda goes on to say, yet we can say Bryan Johnson is a modern-day Hiranyakashipu, but non-violent one, trying to become immortal in all aspects, doing a lot of tapasya austerities for holding his age or extend it to eternity. Yeah. Yeah, great point. Okay, thanks for tuning in. In an upcoming episode, talking about people who can't get published on Dandavats or in official ISKCON channels, we're looking forward to having Dheera Govinda on. He's got a new book out. Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. They refused to publish it in the ISKCON Communications Journal, so he's independently published it on Amazon.com, and we're going to have him on to talk about that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's going to be great, huh?
I think we need to create a new website for all of the
episodes,
out-of-box thinkers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what a great idea. Yeah. I created iskonnews.net.com.org, ran it from 2004 until 2007. And it was, then I changed the name to Planet ISKCON and gave the ISKCON.com website URL to Mukunda Maharaj, who was working with Pancharatra, and now they refuse to publish me. So we can create another one again.
Of course. The thing is, we need to be able to express ourselves and people that are in the same pathway. Rather than being constricted and demonized. Nah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
We'll create it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna. Okay.
Take 4.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,